Alright, there it goes, and welcome to Humane Mind Live, number 98. Oh, I'm getting some feedback here. So 2001, A Face Odyssey. Terrible. Terrible. But as soon, like, okay, so it's old news by now, and that's obviously a reference to the Trudeau thing. But as soon as as soon as that popped in my head, I couldn't let it go. I'm like, come on, man. It's so bad. Well, it happened in 2001. Like, what are the odds? Anyway.
I mean, it fits. It's still a bit funny, but it fits.
It is super cringe, but okay. So as I was writing the show notes, something occurred to me that I should probably go over all the topics that I'm going to talk about beforehand, because I do come up with things like that for all the topics most of the time. So the other story I'm going to talk about is No Luck for Ed Buck, Trudeau's blackface. Oh, this is the title itself, so I didn't reiterate it in the notes here. The Big Lewandowski, Booty Judge Protest Chicks, Pete Urson's Dragon, Forget Eminem, Corn Pop is the real OG, and no ReeeeGretas. Okay. Terrible. Alright. Now that everybody who was thinking about tuning in has decided this is a waste of time.
Political puns, the worst.
Wait, what?
I said political puns, just the worst.
What just happened here?
Are you not able to hear me?
No, I can hear you. Oh, stupid button. Hit the wrong button. So I was in my back room in the stream itself, and there's a button for live control room, which is where you manage the stream itself. But now there's two buttons for that, because the other one is their new-ish feature, which I don't understand at all. I looked into it, and it doesn't make any sense to me the way that they're trying to... They got rid of some features, and then they re-added them, but they called them different things. It's dumb. I don't understand. I guess so they took away the ability to live stream a hangout from YouTube itself. I don't get the logic behind that, because you used to be able to just set up a quick stream, and it would create a hangout, and it would start filming that hangout. Pretty easy, couple of clicks. Now they reintroduced that feature, although they made it more awkward to set up to begin with. I'm not sure what the logic is behind any of that. But I'm using OBS to stream into it, so that doesn't affect me, but it is annoying because I accidentally clicked on the wrong one. Anyway, stream stuff aside, those are the topics I'm going to be talking about. So starting with the first one here, the main topic, or maybe not this is the oldest piece of news. Yeah, the opening piece of news. It's the oldest piece of news, but Trudeau, it came to light that he had been in blackface before. So the odd thing is you would think this would be something that he would kind of remember and be like, oh, you know what, I should probably not hammer stuff home along these lines of the whole racism and person kind of, and I should maybe not be so moral virtue signaling when I know that this stuff is out there in my past. And instead, he just kind of, I guess, out of sight, out of mind, and there was not one incident of this, but at least 3 incidents, and he says he doesn't know exactly how many times it occurred. So the first incident is with an Arabian Night party, which this is what people were pointing out. So he goes full blackface, but his entire costume is Aladdin from like Disney's Aladdin. and it's like what is it,
well, I think that one they called it brown face.
Oh yeah, that was the thing, is they were reporting on it. They were reporting on these, and they reported it as brown face. Like all the MSN started referring to this picture, and then the other stuff that came out as Trudeau in brown face. And then it changed to darkened skin. It's what? Pretty soon it's gonna be like, yeah, Trudeau. No, Trudeau's tanning it fiasco. What?
Okay,
Ugh.
so that's the thing I find a bit odd. I really don't care if he did that.
Yeah, I don't
Judging
either.
from the pictures, it was from a school event. It was from
Yeah.
some party stuff.
Okay, I have to clarify.
He
It was.
didn't go out. He wasn't going out.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't doing actual black to make fun of black people.
No, it's.
He was just trying to fit in character. But he went a little overboard more than most people would.
Yeah.
But honestly, who does that anyways?
Yeah, that's the weird. So it's weird to do that. You would think so that you said it was at school, but I want to clarify. He wasn't a student at school at the time. He was a teacher at the school when he did this, and this was in like 2001. So this was not like the Northam pictures and all that stuff. It's high school yearbook stuff from 70s and 80s. So you're like, okay, I could kind of understand why someone would do that and not think it was a big deal and be like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's a costume. It wasn't a big deal back then. In 2001, this was kind of a big like this was a well-known, yeah, don't do that. Because you got to think
but
this
I mean, even in the 80s and 90s, that's when
Yeah.
I grew up.
it was
There
still
some movies where people would do that. Where it's not She's the Man. What's that one where that
white chicks.
girl dressed up and like? No, not the
No.
girl. There was a dude who did that. I don't remember. I didn't actually watch the whole movie. Something about like him being a football player, but he went like real dark. Looked like a horrible fake tan gone wrong. But that was in some movies because it was already considered odd.
Yeah, and with
Even
like
for Halloween or costume parties, people didn't go and paint their whole body a skin color to look like Michael Jackson or look like
because
whatever.
if you look the 2000s, that's when the little kid who went to school to look like his football player. Like that was not 5 years ago or whatever. That was about 15 to 20 years ago when those incidents. Okay, maybe not. Let's see, because that was on Daniel Tosh. When was Daniel Tosh on? Like 12 years ago?
Yeah, it was over a decade ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, it's not normal for people to go out and do like a whole body color change up to look like someone else. If you like your athlete, you get their jersey, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, you're going as this guy."
Yeah.
Or if you want to look like Michael Jackson, you get the cool red leather jacket and the red leather pants.
Yeah, okay, so Tosh 0 is from 2009, and already then it was already like this huge, okay, you can't even do this as a costume in elementary school, it's bad. And it was like,
Yeah.
so at that time it was the, hey, this is obviously wrong, kids don't know about it, but everybody else is like, dude, woo. 8 years previously, an adult teacher at us is kind of like, huh, there's nothing wrong with it. That doesn't make any sense. So granted, I don't see there's anything wrong with this. There's also Jimmy Kimmel where he did a skit where he was dressed up like Charles Barkley, went full makeup. I mean, so the other thing is Tropic Thunder, right? Robert De Niro,
Yeah,
or not Robert De Niro, Robert Downey Jr. Yeah.
He was overboard. He was playing an Australian actor that constantly went overboard, who was playing a black actor in a movie that never actually was being filmed. The whole thing is just parody.
It's a parody of method acting. I mean, that's his entire character. Is like they go overboard, they go too far, and they
cut it out. We don't need to do that right now. So I mean, if someone does that, it's a dumb idea. But I don't see that really cause for any backlash. Now, if you did actual blackface, the whole Al Jolson thing, where super dark whatever face paint he used, and they highlighted the lips to make them absurdly huge, and it was just meant to kind of display this stereotypical black person at the time. Yeah, I get it. I don't think anybody in the right. I don't even think a KKK member would do that, because they would probably be lynched just for that.
Yeah.
So no one's doing that on purpose. But why does it occur to people to have to go and change the entire color of your skin when you're just dressing up as a costume, somebody who I idealize?
Yeah. So that was the other thing is like he's dressing up as Aladdin, but he went full full shoe polish, and you're like, wait a minute, what? Aladdin? um, I don't know.
Yeah, that was the guy with the okay tan.
Yeah, like he was like the whitest character in the film.
Yeah.
So, which I mean, granted, Disney's like at the time, everybody's like, yeah, this is great, whatever, nobody cared. But then later on, people are like, oh man, this film is so whitewashed. I'm like, what? But anyway, I mean, I guess that came out when they were doing the remake. So there was something else that's kind of related to that, in that Sarah Silverman she went blackface as a part of a sketch in the Sarah Silverman program. And she recently lost a movie role because of that. So this was in 2007. She was on the Sarah Silverman program, and there was an episode where she's complaining that it's hard to be Jewish, and her black friend is complaining that it's hard to be black. And so they decide to switch places for a day. And her switching places was not darkening her skin like Trudeau did, but to go just out like blackface. That's the entire episode is Sarah Silverman in blackface. But it's to highlight the absurdity of it. It's not the entire show is about racism and the difficulties people face on their but there's people now talking about that show, and it's like, oh, that was racist for her to wear blackface. I'm like, you guys didn't understand this episode at all. Like,
no, it's no longer intent or what the point of the show was. I mean, honestly, even though this is probably what most people can consider controversial, Al Jolson had an appreciation for black culture.
Yes.
He just went about it the wrong way and brought out some bad stereotypes, which is why that old term blackface came about.
Mm-hmm.
But his original intent wasn't to put black people down. I mean, his original intent was to highlight the music and dance, which is what he thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's why he went with that character, because he wanted to be able to dance like that and to that kind of music. But back then, it seemed black culture and white culture were a bit too distinct. So he went about it the wrong method, and now he's slapped with this permanent blackface. But it has to come down to intent and understanding what the background is. Because he got the idea for the blackface from all the other stereotype cartoons, which very much made fun of your dumb black slave guy, or, you know, whatever they were trying to push out, the propaganda at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, so that all kind of goes back to Dave Chappelle's skit, because he was because when he's portraying somebody of a different race, like a stereotypical white guy, he's not just he's using a particular voice and persona. Like, when he plays his white guy role, it's like overboard. It's not, hey, I'm just a normal guy. It's not just Dave Chappelle saying, hey, I'm a white guy, and then speaking his normal voice. No. He goes on, well, that's not... He goes to, like, the nerdy, like, Ned Flanders-ish.
Like the word, well, gosh.
Yeah. Well, gee golly, guys, I can't believe this happened. It's like he becomes like the Ned Flanders version of, and I'm like, dude, what? That guy doesn't actually, like, I don't think that guy actually exists in real life, but yeah. And then when he did his bit about what if I was Oriental, and then he goes into a faux, like, overboard stereotypical Asian accent, like, I got accent? Yeah, I guess that's accent. But overboard impersonation, and I'm like, that's kind of along the same lines as when people are doing comedy, or when they do those stereotypes. There's a reason for those stereotypes. It's because they're highlighting the distinctions it's overboard, but it's kind of
one of that is if a white guy was trying to act like just a regular black guy. Yeah. He wouldn't actually have to do anything, because that would just be a regular dude.
Yeah. It's pointing out the contrast.
Asian guy, well, at least here in the U.S., Asian guys speak English. Yeah. They do the same things as everybody else does. Yeah. The only difference that you would be able to tell is physically, facial features and skin color. So to emphasize the comedy or the absurdity, they have to go to the most extreme stereotype. Yeah. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
Yeah, and so as far as the whole, it's funny that Trudeau did this and didn't think anything about it, but the reason people are highlighting this, or at least most of the people that I follow that are talking about the issue, is not so much that he did this. It's like nobody who is conservative or libertarian or anarcho-capitalist and they're cares about this. They're like, yeah, it's not, his intent was obviously not malicious. He doesn't hold any animosity for it. It's an appreciation for other cultures because you can there's like this entire montage of Trudeau dressing up as different things. Like he went to India and he's wearing their garb and he's dancing. Yeah,
the whole Indian thing.
Yeah.
Even Indian officials were like, I
Yeah,
don't know why you're dressing like that. It's like ceremonial garb and it has nothing to do with. That's not what we look like normally.
yeah. He goes overboard to the extremes, and then there's pictures of him as dressed up as a cowboy and he likes to play dress up. That's it. But he likes to, yeah.
He likes costumes. He likes the idea of all these diverse people and wants to participate. I
Yeah.
get that. That's probably his only
Yeah.
positive thing from my point of view.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could be a bit admirable, but he just didn't think it through.
Well,
And it wasn't a big
yeah.
issue back when he did it. It was
Yeah.
just kind of.
It's one of those things that you should probably know better because society is looking down on this sort of thing. But the thing about what makes Trudeau's situation like, okay, now we've got a problem with this, is because of his virtue signaling and like his insistence that other people like, oh, how dare you, sort of thing. When he's talking about other people, he's like, oh, I can't believe you said that. You're obviously racist. I'm like, his insistence that Trump is racist. I'm like, are you kidding me? If you're gonna point fingers at being racist, comparing the two lives, you've done more things that are like, okay, dude, if somebody, an impartial alien came down and was trying to observe the two's lives and based just on their social media presence and their public, and like, okay, which of these two do you think might be the racist? They'd be like, the Canadian one, and they're like, oh no, you're wrong, alien. It's kind of like, I don't think either of them actually is racist. But Trudeau has gone out of his way to continually claim Trump is racist. And I'm like, so it's racist to want more black or to want more employment for black and bragging about how low the employment numbers are for African Americans in the U.S. right now. It's racist to go over to another country to get a black rapper, or I don't know if he actually went, but to speak with their government and get a black rapper who had broken their laws released from their prisons. Oh, no, that's racist. It's racist to implement laws that have either reduced sentences for improperly or wrongfully convicted, or what's the other? Maybe not wrongfully convicted, but people who were overly punished. And this is especially impacting African Americans in the U.S. But yeah, so that one lady who was like dealing pot or something like that commuted her sentence and gave her a pardon, or not. I don't think he gave her a pardon. I think he just commuted her sentence. But she's out of jail because of him. And people like, those are not like, I don't understand. It's like, okay, all of these things he's doing that you're like, well, if he was racist, he wouldn't do them. And you're like, no. So what exactly has Trudeau done as far as policy-wise or action-wise to help members of the Canadian community that aren't white? As far as I can tell, nothing but talk. I can't point to a single policy or action.
Modern culture is based off of listen to what I say, do what I say, don't look at what I'm doing. So when it comes to Trump, you don't hear him necessarily standing up for black people or black culture.
Yeah.
Why? Because he just considers that part of American culture.
Yeah.
It's not something that needs to be pointed out. And that's the way a lot of people feel about it.
Yeah.
Nothing special about being black here or white here or Asian. You're just American.
Yeah.
Take that as being something special. You know, be a nationalist. Enjoy this country and what we were founded on. That's great. But since he doesn't go out and virtue signal about it, they assume must be anti-black if he's not out promoting black culture. Instead, he's just promoting things that have benefited black citizens, black culture, but as an after effect of just the country doing better as a whole. you wouldn't have to keep highlighting, hey, black unemployment at the lowest ever, if they wouldn't get the hint, hey, good things are happening.
Yeah.
I'm not specifically targeting the black community, but it's still, you're doing good. This is great news.
Because it's that
bringing it up.
Yeah.
Not outed. Hey, any particular culture or group of people is better than the other. That's not how we view things. It's not how we're supposed to view things. So that's why this is a bit awkward, is because Trudeau has been on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
Of intersectionality, and then when he's caught doing something that is against their rules, now he's kind of stuck with his hand in the cookie jar. So, you got caught. So while he can't forgive Trump and can't get past, hey, Trump's a racist for absolutely no reason, just because we said so, and I'm going to go with it. Now things are being thrown my way. I'm just going to issue a quick apology and hope everyone gets past it and doesn't look at me as a racist, even though there's photographic evidence of me doing something worse than Trump's ever shown or stated about race, period. No. So it's just a double standard.
Yeah, okay, so there was one thing I wanted... So I don't have anything queued up for this stream, but there was one image that I think it was Andrew Clavin who posted this, because Trudeau, as part of his apology tour, changed his avatar on Twitter, and it's him shaking hands with a black man, and I think it was Andrew Clavin who wrote, Trudeau tries to, I guess, appease the backlash, I don't remember the exact terminology, by shaking hands with a man in a blue shirt. And Trudeau is the guy. Trudeau is wearing the blue shirt in the picture. So I don't have... Yeah,
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's like that whole thing. Yeah, I've got black friends. I can prove it.
Oh, well, no. So the picture... So the black guy is wearing a white shirt, but Clavin is saying he shakes hands by shaking hands with a man in a blue shirt. Yeah.
Another guy in blackface.
Yeah. It's just, I was like, dude, that was amazing. But yeah, that's... So I was trying to think of things I should have had queued up for the episode. But.
Like, Trudeau is that guy saying, I've got black friends, see?
Yeah.
I can't erase it. None of that should even need to be said. You don't need to go out and show photographic evidence.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah, they
your interact do the talking. They should both just match up.
Yeah. So. Okay. So the next topic that kind of happened this week, although this kind of got brushed over real quick. I mean, it was... I don't think this made any mainstream media, or at least none that I had seen, or like I was looking for stuff about this. Most of the information on this seemed to be coming from alternative media sources. So Ed Buck, I think maybe Fox News might have touched on this, because Fox News is, had a stick up their butt about Ed Buck, and I think rightfully so. If you don't know who Ed Buck is, he is a pretty big contributor to Democratic campaigns. You're talking about like donating millions of dollars, and he's had not one, not two, but 3 people die in his apartment. That so, yes. So okay, so yeah, he's a big time donor for Democratic parties. He was also a superdelegate for the Democratic Party. I don't know if I don't remember the exact time frame of that, but he was one of their delegates. And you're like, okay, he was one of their delegates after somebody had OD'd in his apartment. So what this guy is known for, outside of being a Democratic campaign contributor, is getting he's a homosexual man, and he gets gay, mostly African American men to go to his apartment, and while at the apartment, well, they have sex and they do other stuff, but he gets off on them ODing on drugs, like getting so high they can't do anything, completely disabled, and getting them to the edge of almost dying, and then kicking them out of his apartment. So he's known for this, and it's gotten to the point where those overdoses has led to, cardiac arrest and actual deaths of the people in his apartment. And you'd think after the first time this happened, that'd be like, okay, dude, like, okay, I can understand that being an accident, maybe, like, yeah, cool it on whatever this crazy fetish is, stop that. No, but then it happens a second time. Okay, at that point, cops got to be like, okay, at this point you should know better. Like I can understand, oh yeah, whatever, ODs twice, really, and he gets off without anything. And the third time they're like, okay, they just threw the book at him, and so now he's facing life in prison. You're like, yeah, this is obviously. Granted, I could see someone making a case to defend against a single incident. Like, this, like, okay, yes, this was somebody OD'd in his apartment and he died, but that wasn't the man's intent. When you get your second one, that's gotta be like, dude, you know this is gonna happen. This is not, there's no wiggle room at that point for me. I wouldn't agree with defending him saying, oh, well, this is obviously an accident, but I could understand making that case, and I could understand that case probably being dismissed on the ground of, this is just an accident sort of thing. But as soon as the second incident happens, dude, that's like, okay, there's nothing we can do to defend you. You're toast. And yet, skates through, nothing. No charges, nothing, just... And it's only the third time. And this has gone on for decades. So, and so this is the other thing that's going around with this story, is homeless people in the area near him, they are referring to him as Dr. Kevorkian. So, like, this is not just known to people in the, at Fox News who are investigating and are out to get, Democrats. It's not known to just Republicans who are like, ooh, here's a Democrat with a skeleton in his closet, or 3 skeletons in his closet. But, like, people who don't pay attention to anything, like people who are living on the streets, already doing drugs, probably doing sexual favors for drugs. People who don't pay any attention to politics knew this guy as Dr. Kevorkian. I'm like, dude, come on, what's like? At what point does this guy, like, how does this guy continue to not get like a constant police escort, or just like, dude, yeah, we gotta check on this guy like every day or every week to make sure that he's not, basically assisted suicide. I mean, yeah, that Dr. Kevorkian tag fits pretty at it. Yeah.
It's because he's a prominent donator.
Yeah.
He's a guy with money, and you can get by with more than your average person when you've got money. And if you're donating to the right people, you can get by with a lot.
Yep. So, that's...
Unless you keep a little black book of everybody, and then
you get suicided.
Suicided in prison.
Oh, there was one thing I left off of the notes because I skipped over it. So it was on my phone notes, but it's not on the stream tag. I don't have anything clever for that, but the Area 51 raid, that nothing happened. Oh, that was a clip I should have had queued up. So the only thing that's of significance about that entire thing, so this happened over the weekend. It was, people have been talking about it for weeks. They were supposed to do something on the 21st or the 22nd of September at Area 51. Instead, a bunch of people showed up at the desert, and they had like a little concert type thing, and then that was it. But people were talking about, if we storm Area 51, they can't catch us all, they can't stop us all.
Oh, yes, they can.
Yeah, they can. And when people first started showing up, there was increased security around the Area 51 base. Like, there was SWAT teams and all this stuff ready. There was helicopters in the air. It was like, yeah, they were prepared just in case. Nothing ended up happening, but there was a news clip going around of a reporter talking about the incident. He was just talking about, yeah, there's nothing to see here, and they're just doing a concert sort of thing. And somebody runs behind him doing the Naruto run. Okay, so if you're not familiar, the Naruto run is where you put your head forward, you put your arms to your side, kind of behind you for aerodynamics, and you run forward like, I guess, kind of like an ostrich.
I think it was supposed to be like a ninja look, but it worked in a cartoon. Just not
no, it doesn't. It looks ridiculous. There's no. It looks like you're just about to fall over and smash your head or face or your head into the ground, and you're just barely keeping yourself from doing that the entire run. It looks goofy, but this guy did this behind the reporter, and his name, I don't even know the guy's name, but that incident is now going down as a legend, that guy. Because that was, for anybody who's not familiar, that was
thing that happened, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was part of the Area 51 meme. Is there's pictures of all the Naruto runners, like, dude, yeah, if we run like Naruto, they can't stop, they can't hit us with their bullets, they can't stop us from getting in. So that was part of the meme, but okay, that was just something silly that happened over the weekend, and I guess while I'm talking about things that happened over the weekend that were silly and pointless. There's a lot of things that happened over this weekend, so on the 22nd, Booty Judge decided to protest Chick-fil-A. So I don't think this, if anybody thinks about this for like 2 seconds, like, wait a minute, Chick-fil-A? The 22nd is a Sunday, isn't it? Wait a minute.
Nobody there.
You protested a business on the day that they are closed, like notorious for being closed on Sundays. Well, I'm sure so many people didn't go and eat at Chick-fil-A on a Sunday, and it's all because of Booty Judge. So the whole incident's ridiculous. So not only is Chick-fil-A has nothing to do with homosexuality or homosexual rights or anti-gay, like, the owner, the family that owns it are Christian, and they talk about their personal views, but at no point has any of that been involved in their business itself. They hire homosexual people to work at their restaurants. Granted, it's a franchise, so the group of people that owns it don't have direct control over the hiring practices of individual businesses, but nothing about the individual businesses or the corporation as a whole has anything to do with homosexuality or Christianity. I think with the exception of, like, wrappers on some of the items have, like, Bible verses or something like that. But that might be Whataburger, actually. I don't remember which.
And what are they protesting?
I don't know. They're protesting chicken sandwiches. I have no idea.
I've never understood what the hate is with the left and Chick-fil-A, other than the owners are Christians, and so I guess it's anti-Christian. They oppose Christianity. So if you happen to be a Christian, they're going to harass you, trying to get your business to shut down.
Yeah, I guess, like,
but
they did similar things with Hobby Lobby, although I could kind of understand their perspective on Hobby Lobby, because they're like, oh, they're denying employees, because that was something that was actually a policy of the Hobby Lobby, where they wouldn't pay for birth control. So I don't agree with protesting Hobby Lobby on those grounds, but at least I'm like, okay, at least that's something the company's doing. Chick-fil-A, you're like, they sell sandwiches. Nothing they do as a business has any. Yeah. I don't understand the protesting Chick-fil-A, but there's not much more else to that story other than that was just a stupid protest, and Booty Judge is on it, like, he's not gonna last through the next debate. If there's any sense of rationality amongst any kind of Democrats, like, he's on his way out and he's desperate for attention.
What he's trying to do is to pander to two different groups that are in somewhat of opposition of each other. And it's not that Christian. Most Christians nowadays don't believe in homosexuality, don't agree with it, but they're not going to go out and protest and throw stuff at you and harass. They just don't agree with your lifestyle, but hey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same boat I'm in.
I
don't agree with it, but I'm not going to harass you. I'm not going to, put you down in front of anybody, or I'm not going to talk about you behind your back. That's not my business. I really don't care.
Yeah, that I'm gonna clarify. That attitude and that view wasn't the case 20, 30 years ago.
Correct.
But, like, even somewhat more recently, whenever Westboro Baptist didn't wake up and didn't be like, dude, that's not the way you do it, they didn't get the memo that most of the rest of Christians got, and they were out there, preaching at military funerals and stuff like that. The rest of people who are Christians or the rest of the denominations were like, dude, yeah, we don't want anything to do with them. We condemn what they're doing. Those people are preaching hate. They are not with us. They don't represent us. We're not like that. We're we want nothing to do with what they're doing right now. 20 years earlier, Westboro Baptist would have kind of been in line with most Christian perspectives on homosexuality, but they never like, okay, this is not helping us at all. This is actually not what Jesus would have taught. This is nothing about this is Christ-like. Yeah, we should stop that, because the rest of Christianity, yeah, there was a whole bunch of like animosity towards homosexuality or towards the LGBT, the 90s and 80s and stuff like that. But 2000 and on, there was a complete shift, and it was like, okay, we're not winning any favors, we're not helping anybody, we're not actually getting people to change their own beliefs. We're just wedging. We're creating a divide between people that we want to help and think need our message. We are turning them in the opposite direction. We are making them more staunch in their beliefs and their viewpoints. That doesn't help either of us. So they had a shift in attitude, and we're like, okay, we disagree with your lifestyle, and we'd like to show you a better one, but we're not going to condemn what you're doing. We're not going to judge you. We're just going to say, according to the Bible, this is what the Bible says. If you want to join us, if you want something better, if you're looking for something more, and you're not finding it in your current, try this out. It's kind of that is a much more
more of an accepting environment.
Yeah.
Rather than just hate-filled.
Yeah.
We're not out to condemn people to hell. That's never been a Christian's job. That's not our decision.
Yeah.
So why were we trying to do that? So anyways, yeah, that was decades ago. It's been quite a while. So while most of Christianity still doesn't agree with the homosexual lifestyle, they are not anti-gay, as in we're coming out to persecute and attack you. That hasn't really been done. Yeah, I don't know. That's just not even happening. It's not really a thing anymore.
Well, and that doesn't work as far as if, that beating people over the head with the Bible has never worked. And the only time it sort of had any impact in the United States was during the First and Second Great Awakening, and that didn't last. It was fear-mongering to get people to join the church, because, the end times are right around the corner, and get yourself right. And then people came to the church, and they're like, I gotta get this right. And then a year or two later, they're like,
nothing happened.
Oh, nothing happened? All right, I'm gonna buy church. If that strategy worked, there wouldn't have needed to be a Second Great Awakening. It would have just been like, First Great Awakening, all right, everybody's coming back to the church, problem solved. Oh, wait, everybody's leaving again? That didn't work. All right, let's sinners in the hand of an angry God. You're all gonna burn in hellfire. And then everybody comes back. Oh, don't burn us. And then, okay, by the way, this is all right. No crisis. Crisis averted. I guess I'm safe. All right, back to partying and drinking. That strategy doesn't work.
Here's the contradictory part with at least the protest.
Yeah.
So I know, that's why I asked what was even protesting, because I don't
think he knows.
I've never seen a statement where Chick-fil-A came out and said down with homosexuality, or any kind of political statement. They're just a fast food place. That's it.
Yeah. So the only
thing that people know about them is that the founders, the owners, are Christian.
Yeah. And he said he personally did not agree with homosexuality and thinks that marriage should be between a man and a woman. But there's no
they're not lobbying for anything. They're not donating a bunch of money to anti-LGBT whatever. That's his personal feelings. Yeah. So what?
Like, unless you consider organizations like the Salvation Army and Boy Scouts anti-LGBT, I was like, they've donated to charitable organizations, but there's nothing inherent in those organizations against LGBT.
But with Buttigieg, he's outright claiming to be a homosexual Christian. That's his gimmick.
Yeah.
That's his weird quirk stance to try and get in with two different communities. Say, look, I got one leg on the conservative Christian side, I got the other leg LGBT. I should be the perfect candidate for any kind of election. But when he goes and protests a Christian establishment that hasn't actually done anything against LGBT at all, it's just because of the fact that they're a Christian and have what is still widely held as a Christian understanding that the Bible is not pro-gay. It doesn't endorse it. It doesn't say, hey, this is, it kind of is the opposite and says this is not the natural way God put things. And yet most of Christianity will stand back and say, you're gay, but that's fine, you do you. But if you ever need to talk about it or what the Bible says, I'll discuss that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the stance of most branches of Christianity for decades. He's kind of showing that the whole Christian speak thing means absolutely nothing when you will go, not boycott, but protest against another establishment simply for the fact that the owners are Christian, and it has nothing to do with that establishment being, they don't have church sermons there.
No.
They're not throwing gay people out. I don't understand what the issue is. So he's kind of alienating part of who he says
Yeah.
he represents.
So
again, it's another one for
yeah.
listen to what I say, don't do what I do situations.
Yeah, if he was hoping
what he's practicing.
Yeah, if he was hoping to garner any goodwill or any votes from the Christian crowd, he just kind of he kissed away any chance of that. The other thing, he's also upsetting LGBT people because they're I don't know if you saw the stuff where they were protesting. This was not the booty judge one, but when people were protesting the Chick-fil-A opening up in Canada, and there's people walking in, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm lesbian, like it's a chicken sandwich. I'm just gonna go in. You guys are all crazy."
I'm gonna try it.
yeah. So there was a bunch of people who were LGBT walking into that Chick-fil-A amidst all the protests. They're like, "Oh, they hate gays." And he's like, "No, they just gave me a chicken sandwich." Then. So the people who are members of the LGBT community who aren't crazy whack jobs, they look at him and be like, "Dude, he's just protesting a chicken sandwich. That guy's out of his mind. He doesn't got my vote. That's not. I don't care if he's gay. I don't care. I don't care how gay he is. He's not getting my vote. That guy's insane." So he's losing. Yeah.
So this is the thought. It just kind of crossed my mind there when you're talking about the whack jobs versus the non-whack jobs, right? We're constantly told that LGBT plus community, their population size is growing. They were at like 2% of the U.S. population, somewhere around there, right? But it seems there are two types.
Yes.
There are the non-activists, just your average run-of-the-mill people who just happen to be gay, and really nobody cares. That they don't run around saying I'm gay and you should appreciate it. They're gay just in their own time, just like nobody walks around the office saying I'm a hetero and I love women, because that'll actually get you fired. So nobody's walking around talking about that. But then there's this activist crowd, the ones that like to show up with no pants on and flap their junk around at LGBT pride parades, bring their children along and say, "Hey, look at these grown men stripping for you." That's the disgusting part, and it seems he's kind of catering more towards, and that's even a minority of the LGBT community. So I think there's going to be a divide there, where at least the normal-headed ones are kind of like, "You guys have gone too cuckoo. I don't want any part of this community. I'll just be gay over here with the rest of the country who doesn't care."
Yeah, so that's the vocal minority, because they are a minority not just in the U.S., but they are also a minority when it comes to people that are LGBT. There's a big portion of that group, or actually the majority of that group, they actually look at the LGBT pride parades or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, that's what those people are doing is not helping anybody. I'm against that." Yeah.
The guys with ball gags in their mouth, like that's not a why. That's not a thing that needs to belong out in public. At all.
So there's a good portion of people who are LGBT who look at that and with disgust and like, yeah, that's stuff that should not be out in the streets, should not be in public, and that makes everybody who is LGBT look bad in comparison, because people will look at that and be like, "Dude, that's all of them," and these people are just trying to live normal lives, and they just happen to have sex with somebody who's the same biological sex as them. That.
I don't.
Or
I think there's going to be a rift within pretty much all these identitarian groups, because it's the same with any of them. Even like the black identitarian groups. There's a lot of black people who are just normal, just day-to-day life. They go to work, they do what they do, they raise their families, they're just good people. They don't need to constantly be part of this activist, cop-hating, pigs in a blanket, watch them burn kind of hatred. But it seems all of these intersectional groups that are vocal take the extreme side and They're not actually fighting for any kind of rights.
No,
They're
they're
out to try and seize power for themselves and use a victim status to build themselves up. And I think Buttigieg is aligning himself with those smaller, extreme minority groups, and he's just shooting himself in the foot along with all the other DNC candidates because they seem to be going towards that way.
All right, and so it's kind of weird how this topic kind of blends into the next one because the guy's name is Buttigieg, and then there was also, you're talking about the gay pride parade. Well, those two things kind of merged in regards to climate change for some weird reason, because there was a big protest. Oh, I don't remember if this was over the weekend or if this was on Friday. I was trying to, maybe it was over the full weekend. But there's a video going around of a definitely not heterosexual guy wearing jorts. Excuse me.
No, those aren't regular jorts. Those are like...
Those are like, those are like painted on jorts, and he is twerking to stop climate change. So I was asked on Twitter what that has to do with climate change, and I figured it out. Okay, what he is enacting is something known as the butterfly effect. And so he's hoping that if he twerks enough in the streets, that it will cause the wind to blow, and that will cause some pollen to stir, and will cause someone to sneeze like I just did. So maybe that sneeze is a direct impact of his twerking, and that sneeze is going to hit a bug, which is going to cause that bug to get eaten by a bird it wouldn't otherwise get eaten, and that bird is going to move out of its usual flight pattern, and it's gonna flap its wings, and that's gonna cause branches to fall, and that's gonna start this whole chain of events that's gonna eventually lead to a tropical storm wiping out all of India and China's industrial sectors. So that man is helping single-handedly to end global warming.
Oh, that is so that would mean he's causing what they consider climate change.
No.
And then you have to do the enemy defeat the other enemy, of which they don't speak of because apparently the U.S. is the only enemy. I don't know, but yeah, I saw a video of that same dude running in between cars. They blocked some state streets in Washington, throwing confetti everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, just litter.
There's confetti all over the street. There's no chance of them cleaning up that confetti. I don't you can't. Even if they got a high-powered vacuum and tried to vacuum the street, I don't.
Put a dumpster on fire. There's like big things of smoke going up. Why? What does that have to do with climate change?
So there was three things regarding climate change that happened over the weekend. So there was the booty dancing guy, but that was part of a larger protest where they blocked traffic. So, and people were pointing that like, wait a minute, you guys are fighting climate change, or at least spreading awareness of climate change, as if people haven't heard of climate change, because it's only been rammed down our throats for 40 plus years, although it's under different names. They're raising awareness of climate change by blocking traffic and keeping cars on the roads running, burning fossil fuels, and releasing CO2 in the air longer than they would have otherwise been doing that.
All the while littering and setting stuff on fire. I mean, that's as absurd as a, I don't know, feminist movement for wife beaters, and they come out and have men punch women in the face to show people what not to do.
Yeah,
it's that absurd.
Yeah, it is. Calling that clown world is an insult to clown world. It's.
Yeah, and I think someone also had a bright yellow boat, and they parked that in the middle of the street, and had a bunch of kids chain themselves to it.
Yeah.
I don't understand what any of this has to do with climate change or awareness.
So the other thing about this, so there, like I said, there's three different incidents regarding climate change over the weekend. So the other thing was on Friday. I know this was specifically Friday because kids were walking out of school. It was a staged walkout for climate change. Because, because they're obviously leaving school because they care so much about the climate, and not because, oh wait, I don't have to be in school on a Friday. That's how you show a lot of people really care by not coming to school. That's as if kids aren't notorious for not going to school for any reason.
Well, they just left.
Yeah, they walked out.
That's the dumbest. If they wanted a protest, you would do it in like the middle of the week, and then you would come stand out in front of the school and not leave.
Yeah, something like that. But instead, the protest was then.
On a Friday is not a protest of anything. That's every kid's wish.
They're like,
every week.
Yeah, so I just get to leave school and oh yeah, I was at the climate thing. I was not at home playing video games.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get to the third point, and then I have some questions on all of this.
So that was on Friday, and that was all. Yeah, it's not much else about that. But the third thing is the one that's they're getting all the attention right now is Greta Thunberg or whatever. Thunberg?
I heard it's supposed to be pronounced Thunberg.
Yeah, Thunberg. So Greta Thunberg spoke to the UN about climate change because
reasons.
Well, no, I've got something for this. So give me a second to pull this up here, because I oh man, that's something I should have pulled up, but I wasn't thinking about it till I actually started talking about it, but my bad. So yeah, she spoke before the UN, and well, the funny thing that's been going around is Donald Trump walked by her and didn't even notice her, and then she's got this evil scowl on her face, like, "How dare you, sir? You." Yeah. So the other thing about that is afterwards he tweets something. Oh man, I gotta look that up too, because that was like he talks about her being a very
happy young girl.
Yeah, happy young girl, and she's excited about the future. Is that tongue in cheek? Like, yeah, she seems like a very angry and belligerent person. Yeah, sorry this is taking a little bit longer than expected to find. Should have had this queued up beforehand, but again, like I said, I wasn't thinking about it. Where is it? Because I went on a bit of a tirade on it. So, oh, come on, man. There's a lot of stuff about her that was talked about over the past couple of days. Okay, there's born number. Yeah, you can say whatever you wanted to say while I look this up.
Sorry.
Oh, there it is.
On my other computer desk.
Okay, so the question was posed. Yeah, question was posed. What are Greta Thunberg's credentials? And the obvious response is, well, she's 16, she's a girl, she's Swedish, and she can read. So, you know, if you can't understand why that makes her an expert on climate change, then I can't help you. So, what credentials does EcoSense Now, that's Patrick Moore, have just a doctorate and being a co-founder of Greenpeace? He's not even a Swedish or a girl. There's John Coleman, who's the founder of the Weather Channel, is a renowned meteorologist. And he's just, but he's not 16. Also, he dares to speak heresy against the religion of climatology, so his facts don't count like Greta's opinions and emotional pleas do. And then I go on to say, so had Chris Monckton, Alex Epstein, Gregory Whitestone, Dr. Ivan Gjervier, not sure how to pronounce his last name, Bjorn Lomborg, Climate Depot, I forget who that is, Freeman Dyson, Roy W. Spencer, Dr. John Christie. He spoke before Congress when Ted Cruz, and he was alongside Mark Stein at that climate change panel. That was back when it was called global warming. And then and also there was a what's her name? Dr. Curry, I forget her first name. And then Dr. William Happer. So those three were on that climate board. had they spent more time trying to be 16-year-old Swedish girls rather than collecting facts, maybe they could speak before the UN as well.
So, a couple of issues I have with all of this. One, yes, she's just a 16-year-old girl. And, who was that? Oh, Michael Knowles.
Mm-hmm.
On, I believe, Fox.
Yep.
And he said that I don't know how to phrase that. Basically, he was saying he finds it sickening that the left is using a 16-year-old Swedish girl that's mentally ill as their front.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everyone started jumping over him. But
that
she has Asperger's,
and OCD, yep.
Depression. These are all things that she said she's already suffering from, which OCD and depression are considered mental illnesses. Yeah. Asperger's, I'm not 100% sure. It's in the realm. I don't know. I'm not that caught up on that syndrome, but these are all professed by her.
Well, not just her mother as well. Her mother wrote about it in a book.
These are statements. This is on the wiki page about her.
Yep.
This is no information. But he was making a statement not to point out she's mentally ill, but to say, look who you picked as your front person. And the instant he even brought up anything about her was attacked by the other panelists. And the guy said, how dare you? Attacking a child. And he's like,
it's not an attack on her
directly, but she happens to be a child with this stuff.
Okay.
Who else am I going to talk about? This is the person you stuck up front.
All right.
This is your barricade. They are using children, and it's not just her. There were other rallies with children speaking, so I think maybe he could have worded it a little better. Maybe he didn't have to include the mentally ill part, but it wasn't incorrect at all, and he wasn't using it to attack her. He's saying, you picked someone like this to be your front runner for this reason. Because now if we say anything, in objection to her, you can say, why are you attacking a child?
Yeah, that's something that I have an objection to, because I'm like, she's 16. To me, like, she is not a child in this regard. So if she's out there spouting her opinions in front of the UN, this is not, like, she is not acting as a child in this regard. They are not treating her as if she is a child in regard to her opinions about this sort of thing. Like, it's the same thing that they were doing with David Hogg. It's like, dude,
her defense.
Yeah, they're like,
qualified enough to come out and talk about it, but the instant you rebut her, she's just a child. How dare you?
And I'm like, yeah, either she is a child or she's an adult. That's like, if they brought out a 6-year-old and a 6-year-old was talking about how climate change is killing the unicorns, people wouldn't be like, oh, how dare you attack them? They're just a child. Like, that's something they're like, yeah, what do they know? They're just a child. They still believe in Santa Claus, sort of thing.
Well, they tried that with, what's her name? Feinstein, that whole classroom of elementary school kid. And she's like, yeah, I've heard this. This isn't going to work on me.
Yeah.
That was the one time I actually applauded her, but this has been going on.
Like, if it was somebody like that who was obviously a young child who could not tell the difference whatsoever, I could understand the they're just a child excuse. And like, yeah, they're just a child. It's like, well, yeah, because they don't know better yet. But she's 16, and she's making these declarative statements. I'm like, at 16, I don't care if you have mental illness or not. You should not be considered a child in regard to this specific area. Not saying that she should be an expert, but you're like, she either, at this point, she should know better if she's going to go out and make these statements like that. Because at this point, she's a sophomore in, granted, if she's from Sweden, so they don't have a high school as we have high school, but this would be in the U.S., would be equivalent to a sophomore in high school. And if you think about what somebody's actions are, and, like, this is around the same age that Kavanaugh was accused of sexually abusing somebody, right? 16, 17? That party in high school, right? You're like, for that instance, he's just a child. Like, this is the silly excuse of they're just a child, and like, in certain instances, no, they're absolutely not a child. There have been people on trial for murder at the age of 15 and 16 and sometimes earlier who were like, no, you knew full well what you were doing. For the purposes of this trial, you are considered an adult. because you know full
Now,
well
this
what's going
all-
on.
Now, this all depends. So, I agree with
Yeah.
you for the most part, but there are parts where I'm not quite in agreement. This this has been referred to as the new religion.
Yes.
This religion of climate change. And you can see from her voice, the way she's acting, she believes this.
Yes.
This is the way she views the future, is that we have screwed up the planet so bad that we've only got about one generation left before I don't know what's supposed to happen.
So,
we all flood, or we all burn in a ball of flame, or we all freeze. I don't know. Nobody knows.
All three of those is definitive proof of their whether it gets colder or whether it gets warmer or whether it stays the same. That's proof of climate change. They've made a unnullable claim. Because
however,
or unfalsifiable
just
is better
from the rhetoric, and this is the new religion, and there is something a bit funny about that. There was in Switzerland, there was a funeral for a glacier.
Yeah.
2 days ago, Isol or something like that. It's a glacier that's starting to melt, and they're blaming it on climate change. I mean, that
it's
happens.
a glacier.
This is like the first glacier to ever melt in history.
No, and that's we don't. The planet's not supposed to have glaciers. Like the. So
this has become a religion. They're having funeral ceremonies. They're having people come out and express their extreme feelings on this subject, right? So we have a 16-year-old girl literally yelling and saying, "I want everyone to feel my hurt. You know, to feel my what did she call it? My panic."
Yeah, and then how dare you steal my childhood was the phrase from the UN.
Correct, but we didn't do that. Her parents stole her childhood by filling her head with this garbage.
Yeah. So.
And everyone that's accompanying with this. So.
Yeah.
I kind of view this in context.
So when I say she should know better, I don't mean that she should know that the climate is all crazy. What I mean is she knows full well what she's doing. So in the purposes, like you can't say, she didn't know that there would be backlash, or she didn't know that people would criticize her. Like that's. No, if you're 16 and you're doing this, you understand what you're doing.
But she's under the impression, and has been fed this doctrine, that climate change, and more specifically, doomsday, end of the human race, is over the horizon, is a guaranteed scientific fact within a generation, right? We were told by numerous politicians that if we don't fix everything starting right now, and before we hit 2030, human population is doomed.
Yeah,
right? So now it's kind of, and she's viewing it through this lens. So if you were speaking about the end of the world, you would be passionate and you would not care about the backlash. This is the end of the world, and you're talking to a bunch of idiots.
Yeah,
who don't understand that you destroyed your life. That's where she's coming from.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah, but what I'm saying, but the "she's just a child" excuse goes away if that's the mindset. If that's the, like, that doesn't the "she's just a child" excuse is like.
I mean, they're toting out David Hogg and all these other, various kids from Parkland shooting. So I get that. They're trying to play it both ways. It doesn't work that way. If you're going to put her out in the light and she's volunteering to go out and preach her message, then she could take whatever's coming back. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
If she couldn't, you wouldn't put her out there as the poster child, like as the front man. You wouldn't put her out there as the she's the spokesman. Like, if she can't handle that, if she can't stand on her own, then that's not the person you put out in the front. Because
correct. So the thinking of this is more of a religious perspective, because we are both come from a religious background. We were raised in a certain sect or branch of Christianity. It was a pretty dogmatic type of Christianity. Yeah. So it wasn't one of the non-denomination kumbaya. It was more of the this is this, here's the line, you cross it, you're backslidden. It was pretty authoritarian. That's the way this is being. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna bash where we came from. There's a lot of good people and good intentions. Some of the message growing up, I think, was a bit not accurate.
Yeah. I would say, for the most part, you're right. But there were, but it started to change towards the end there, like with new leadership. But
I mean, yeah. Well, again, plenty of great people, plenty of honest people, plenty of good Christians, and not everybody was as dogmatic or strict in who they associated with or how they presented themselves. And, there's just great people. So not getting into that. I'm just saying we grew up in a household where there was a tendency for indoctrination in one specific type of view of Christianity, instead of just saying, let's discuss and find out whether these viewpoints are valid. It was pushed. This is it. You believe anything else, you're wrong. Right?
Yeah.
It's being pushed out with climate change. And then I actually started looking up just randomly a bunch of videos of like little preacher kids.
Yep.
4-year-old, 6-year-old,
yep.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah, there was a documentary called Marjo, right?
And it looks like they're sincere in what they're saying, but they are just parroting what they've been taught their whole life. And it's not because they fully understand what they're saying. It's because they are emulating what they've been taught. They're just spitting out and regurgitating what's been fed in. And that's what I see from Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening because she's not the only one. We've got a young generation of kids growing up believing that is this absolute fact.
And I've
They're not being told that climate change has happened whether humans exist or not. Glaciers melt, grow back, things shift around well before we had any impact on anything. Even in humans' history, we can see shifts in climate change.
Yep.
That's not a discussion. It's how much of an impact are we having now, and no scientist is worth their weight in salt is going to stand out and make any sort of definitive statement. They're just going to make speculative theories. Whoever funds them the most.
Yeah, and so it's going back to that. I was having a conversation earlier today. So during the oh man, I just trying to. What's the Cambrian? Man, don't know why I keep drawing a blank on that. But during the Cambrian era, the global temperatures were about 10 to 12 degrees higher than they are currently. That's about double the average temperature, because right now we're at anywhere from 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. During the Cambrian, the average temperatures, based on ice cores and all that stuff, because I think I talked about this last week, during that period of time, the average temperatures were about 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. It's almost double what it currently is. And that's the Cambrian explosion, where there's a massive amount of life on the planet. The ocean levels were higher back then, but there was also more land for life that supported life, because there was almost the entire planet was a tropical paradise. There were no deserts and ice caps and all of that it's just all tropical land. Food was abundant, plant life was abundant. There's a lot of oxygen in the ocean and in the atmosphere. Life exploded.
For real, Greenland thawed out.
Yeah,
that could fit Canada and the United States and probably Mexico.
Yeah, that's a huge area of land that right now is not really all that inhabitable. If that's as tropical as the Bahamas, who cares if the Bahamas go underwater? Move everybody there. That's a paradise.
Under permafrost. I think like a third of Alaska or Canada is under permafrost.
Yep, and
up there, some Inuit tribes and stuff, but
because right now along our along the what's that called? The Mediterranean. The Mediterranean. Yeah, along the Mediterranean, it's a lot of islands. That's the temperate. That's the tropical zone of the Earth, and most of that is sparsely. There's a very small amount of land in that area. Now, if that tropical doubles or triples its size, and now we're fitting land masses the size of the United States in a tropical rainforest type environment, not even a. Granted, we will lose certain things, and people what about the things we're losing? We're losing glaciers, and the glaciers aren't a good thing.
Glaciers are nothing. They do not help the environment. They don't do anything.
They're just huge blocks of ice. If one goes away, what did we lose? We lost ice covering up land. I don't understand. So the thing I can kind of understand is lamenting losing some of these tropical islands. But if you're replacing a tropical island that's a few miles long with an entire state of Texas, like, yeah, it's not even a contest. Like, Texas is larger than all of the tropical islands combined. If Texas becomes a tropical environment due to temperatures changing because there's more humidity in the air, there's more plant life, there's more, yeah, it's,
Well, okay.
give us that any day of the week.
I bet I'll agree with.
Yeah.
I think the main point of concern is, do humans have any impact, and how much?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
It's assumed by the climate change, I guess, norm now, that humans have a lot of impact, and none of this would be happening. You know, we wouldn't have thunderstorms and hurricanes and stuff that's been around for millennia anymore if humans stopped their factories. But that we can't estimate. We have no models that can accurately dictate what our CO2 emissions are doing. We have some theories, and we've got theories from all different sides. There are some saying this is actually a benefit. We've got others saying that this is causing too much global warming, and it's going to end up getting us like a scorched earth burning fireball here in another 100 years. Well, there is no consensus as to what the extreme is or what the actual effect is, or how much effect we have.
What we can know with relative certainty is how much carbon each country is producing per year. We've got pretty accurate measures on that. And if you look at the overall...
the amount that carbon influences the atmosphere, even with all countries combined, because we don't have an accurate history.
So what we can do is we can estimate how much total carbon human activity is contributing to the atmosphere, and we can look at the overall increase in carbon in the atmosphere, and we can subtract human activity from the amount of increase in overall carbon that we can say is probably not related to human activity, and we can get the number of what's naturally occurring, what's naturally being added, and we can see what our percentage is. And when you do that, it's something like 2%.
It's kind of
like human activity accounts for like 2% of the carbon increase in the atmosphere year over year.
Correct. So it's not as big as everyone says. It's not like we're doing a third increase and with just a massive greenhouse with glass ceilings being constructed above us within the next couple of years. That's not happening. But what we don't have is enough history testing carbon emissions from countries and around the world. What our average has been over, say, the last 50 years, we don't know that.
Yeah.
And we also don't have enough history to see how climate changes over a millennia. We don't. We have records. We can make estimates.
Yeah.
But out of 20-something different climate models, every single one has been grossly inaccurate. When they try and predict what's going to happen in 10 years, way off. The one that seems to be...
Because Florida was supposed to be completely underwater by now.
Because they pretty much tracked human interference in our CO2 emissions. Without that, they're like, nothing's going to change much.
Yeah, ocean levels were supposed to rise. Florida was supposed to be underwater in 2012. So 7 years ago,
Florida was... we were supposed to be hitting an ice age by now.
Yeah.
Then they changed it to global warming in the 90s. And we were supposed to be flooded out. Well, Florida's gone, New York's gone, California's gone.
Yeah.
None of that's happened. And then they had to return it climate change because it turns out some parts are warmer and some parts of the globe are cooler on average. So now there's a slight warming of the overall globe, but some areas are actually experiencing cooler temperatures than their average over the last 50 years. And so that's not really global warming, so they termed it climate change.
Yeah.
But the big issue is, let's get our scientists on it and stop making this propaganda and just see, is this an issue? Let's find out, if we can, how much of an impact are we having? Because right now, it's all just theory and no science behind it.
Yeah.
We have measurements, we have observations, people reading statistics, and everybody's interpretation of the measurements and readings is completely different. And some are saying it's this and it's caused by this. There is no scientific consensus. There is no 99% saying this is 100% the cause, this is the whole reason, and it's all humans. That's all bogus.
Yeah, so the other side to that is I'm in the camp with Christopher Monckton, Patrick Moore, and Alex Epstein when I think the ideal temperature is actually closer to what it was during the Cambrian. I think the ideal temperature is about double what the current temperature is.
No, ideal temperature is 72 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, what they're talking about when they talk about the ideal temperature of the Earth is based on, you know, those historical, you know, the ice cores and all that sort of thing. But also, it's like, yeah, if that's where the era where there was a huge explosion of life, that seems to be the optimal temperature. It's like that's the thermal optimal, as what that era was called. Prior to the whole climate change scare, it was called the thermal optimal.
Well, the crazy
And you're
thing
kind of
is,
like,
we're not really close to those temperatures.
No, we're not.
Even with the carbon emissions, we are very incrementally crawling up, but we don't even know if it's from us or just from the atmosphere, period.
So it's been calculated because CO2's contribution to the increase in temperature is logarithmic. I've talked about this before. If we manage somehow to burn all of the carbon on planet Earth and put it into the atmosphere, which that means all human life and animal life and plant life would be burnt and sent into the atmosphere, the difference in temperature would only account for 6 degrees Celsius. At the most. That includes the excess water vapor created from, like, that's calculating everything to the best of our ability. 6 degrees. So to make up for that other... Yeah, to make up...
caused from things from space.
Yes.
And the sun.
Yeah,
so the Earth, but probably the previous two more importantly.
Yeah, so the previous time they're like, yeah, carbon alone cannot account for that. So it must be solar flares or some it's got to be something to do with the sun's activity on increasing the temperature of Earth. That's something nothing on this planet could have any impact whatsoever on.
Oh, well, I was also reading another report.
Well, yeah, okay, so I guess...
Israeli scientists, and they were saying that it's a combination of solar flares, the sun's rays, and radiation that either gets trapped or reflected, but that's caused by our atmosphere and cloud coverage.
Yeah.
Most of which is from space dust.
Yes.
It doesn't come from us. It comes from space. Whatever's floating, it kind of clings around our outer atmosphere, gets combined into massive clouds, and it's out of our control.
Yes.
It's something extraterrestrial that causes most of the massive changes in extreme weather and cloud coverage.
Yeah.
It is not us, and there's not really anything we can do to change it, impact it, do anything. It's just...
So even if you account for all of the naturally occurring carbon dioxide and naturally occurring greenhouse gases that are not accountable to human activity or even animal activity, if you count all that together, it's still not enough to cause the catastrophic warming that their models describe. The other stupid thing about their models that they for some reason don't understand is the amount of energy it takes to increase temperature. Like, it's because, I mean, I talked about logarithmic when it talks to CO2, and like the amount of extra energy to increase the temperature of something by 1 degree. If you've got a block of ice and you're increasing it by 1 temperature, the amount of energy, not all that much to increase it by 1 degree. You're talking about going from water to steam. Like, that's like an exponential increase over ice to water. Like, the amount of extra energy you have to keep putting in order to get the temperature to keep increasing beyond that, to get to steam to plasma, it's not even close. I mean, it's kind of like XP in an RPG. It's like, yeah, to get to level 1, or to go from level 1 to 10, you could do that in a day, but to get to level 100, yeah, good, you're going to spend a month on an MMO trying to get to the highest level in most games. It's like, yeah, you can get pretty far in the first day. Good luck getting to... It's impossible to get to the max level in a single day. And energy, as far as heating something up, is like that. It's that slow grind. It's like, yeah, it's really easy to get the first little bit, but the higher the temperature gets, the harder it is to get that increase in temperature. And yet, for some reason, their models act as like, oh, it's increasing by 2 degrees every year, so it's going to keep increasing by 2 degrees every year. So I'm like, what kind of mathematical sense does that make? That's preposterous.
That's not actual statistics.
That is
trends like that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30. It happens. There are slow increases, there are slow decreases. It just...
But you can't keep acting as if that increase is going to continue at its current rate infinitely. because that's not how temperature works. Temperature dissipates. It goes from the warmest areas to the coldest areas first. Like, so that increase in temperature, that's why we saw a 17-year period where there was like no accountable heat increase in the global temperatures. And they're like, oh yeah, well, a lot of that was lost into the ocean and the ice caps. I'm like, yeah, but your models were saying the temperature was going to keep increasing at its current rate, and it's gonna oh, like, well, if it keeps at this rate for 20 plus years, we're gonna be at this temperature. And I'm like, yeah, if it could defy the laws of physics and somehow find a way to keep increasing at its current rate.
Well, I mean, as far as the ice cap stuff goes, Antarctica is actually growing, even though the Arctic is slowly melting. And the Arctic has melted before. That used to be major shipping channels.
Yep.
This is nothing new. We have documented human history of Vikings and other traders taking those routes because it's more of a direct route.
Yeah.
So it's not even like this was, 10 million years ago or something ridiculous. This was within humankind's recorded history.
Yeah, and when they talk about how the Indians came to the Americas over a land bridge, it wasn't like crossing the Himalayas to get to the Americas, because they were chasing animals across this land bridge. Like, all of that would have had to been able to support life.
So, but back to the main point with Greta Thunberg and the whole climate change extremism. Let's just, if we play devil's advocate for a little bit and just say things are more accurate to the climate extremists, right? The climate is changing just due to CO2 emissions and due to humankind's interference. What solutions have they proposed other than crying about it?
Nothing.
Nothing other than get rid of all fossil fuels, which means the economy and lifestyle of every first world and second world country, and also impacted due to the collapse of first and second world countries, would be the third world countries. It would be lost. Trying to get rid of that globally would put us pretty much back to before we even had steam power.
Yeah, this is the American frontier before the Industrial Revolution.
Yes. But the only way it would work is the entire globe, every country would have to agree to go back to living in log cabins.
Yeah, if that occurred, there would be massive starvation.
Yes.
Because we could not sustain the food production that is currently required to keep everybody alive. I'm not just talking... So not only would that be massive starvation in the U.S., you're talking about China and India right now. They wouldn't be able to sustain their populations. No. They have over 1 billion people. There's no way that... Like, they have over 1 billion people each. What is in China? Like 2 billion?
Yeah.
And India's over 1 billion. I think it's actually pretty close to 2 billion itself. There's no way that those people could support themselves without industrial farming.
So we've got about a third of the global population that would not be able to sustain itself.
Yeah.
And that's not even including any of the other countries. Obviously, we can't sustain ourselves at our current levels.
Yeah, the United States would see a huge population reduction, but China and India alone, you're talking, we'd probably lose more than 2 billion people.
So the
just in those two countries.
First world countries and bring prosperity to others, such as massive agricultural enhancements with tractors, combines, being able to have a single farmer farm acres of land. Those are massive contributions to the sustainability for humankind. Our current technology, just office buildings to support internet infrastructure, cell phone towers, GPS to keep us connected. Those all require electricity, all of which comes from fossil fuels. We do not have any method at all right now other than fossil fuels of which to keep up this energy grid that supports anything modern.
Even if we go to all nuclear, that still doesn't help us with our transportation, like the tractors and all this stuff. You couldn't make all of our machinery nuclear. We could make our stationary buildings. We could probably power all of them with nuclear reactors and things. But anything that's mobile, that's like, unless we have like the world's biggest electricity grid.
The amount of resources.
Oh no, battery power.
Had massive batteries in our combines.
Okay,
know what happens 5 years when
Yeah.
those batteries are no longer valid?
Yeah.
It's not recyclable. Energizer was praised for having a 3% recyclable battery.
Yeah.
Once those things are used up, they are junk. It's no different than having like a pile of nuclear waste.
Yeah.
It's something we have to go bury somewhere.
Yeah, and there's
So
not
can't
enough materials in the world to make all the cars battery powered.
no,
We
wouldn't be
couldn't
efficient at all.
mine enough materials from the earth to make that even remotely possible.
So solar panels not efficient enough, and just to try and replace even a quarter of our our fossil fuel usage would put I don't even know what the estimate is on the amount of CO2 and extra factories and extra production and extra mining we would need to get all the materials to even make solar panels to even
Okay,
get to
yeah.
that point.
But
would
the
be
other
ridiculous.
side of that is solar panels have a bigger carbon footprint than the fossil fuels themselves.
Yes, massive.
So, yeah.
That's Germany tried this, and they had to go back to importing fossil fuels from other countries around them because they tried to go all green, and their CO2 emissions got worse, and their energy efficiency went down. It is not a solution. So, if we were to say, fine, climate change and humankind's have an effect on the climate, and it's drastic enough where we need to do something, what do we do? And the only solution that seems to work is get rid of fossil fuels and put us all back to pre-industrial revolution.
Yeah, that's their claim.
And that could be the loss of billions of lives.
Yeah. So if you haven't read The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels from Alex Epstein, I highly recommend it because he talks about this, and he talks about, well, even if that's the case, fossil fuels allows us to build structures to protect ourselves from the environment. We have conquered climate. That's what fossil fuels have allowed us to do. So let's imagine worst case scenario, we have uncontrollable global warming, which mathematically and scientifically doesn't work out, but let's assume that we're wrong and that's the case. If we got rid of all fossil fuels, well, life is still going to be extinct. We are not going to survive a global catastrophe of that nature. But if we continue to use fossil fuels and we build structures to protect ourselves, what is that? Holland. Holland is under sea level. And what they do is they build these massive dikes that protect them from this. If Florida is supposed to be underwater, we build this massive dike around Florida. And we keep that up. And we keep that up as long as necessary to keep the water from there. From overflowing onto the land. And the only way we can maintain this is building concrete structures, which requires fossil fuels, and which releases CO2 in the atmosphere when you create concrete. The solution is not to go backwards, but if required, to go forward at a more extreme rate. And yes, that's going to require more CO2 in the atmosphere, but we're going to have more defenses against climate if we continue at our current course. If we try to go back, and it's irreversible, we're just going to, at that point, it's like, why did we even bother? It might as well, that's like committing suicide. Yeah.
Wipe out the human race.
Yeah.
Because we decided to drop all technology and everything.
So even if their predictions are correct, the correct way is forward, not backwards. We are only going to lose lives, and we're only going to lose any advantages we had by going backwards. Even if the climate gets to this point of irreversible, well, we would find ways to survive. We would find ways to protect ourselves and protect our livestock and protect our crops and things like that from the environment, because that's what we've been doing through our entire history. If it gets to the point where, hey, maybe we were wrong and this is becoming more of a catastrophe, it's only through energy or massive energy production that we can hope to survive something like that.
Yep. No, I agree. But I just find it silly to have the what was that, CNN town hall on climate change, 7 hours, where zero solutions other than people crying out about it and saying it's the end of the world. And then we've got this UN conference where they got a 16-year-old girl who has been indoctrinated her entire life to be fearful and that she has no future, that the world is going to end in some major cataclysm because of climate change that humans caused. None of that makes any sense. And I can understand why some people would think maybe there is a little bit to this climate change, but how could you go to the extreme of taking advice from a 16-year-old girl instead of having a panel of scientists
Yeah.
all in unity saying, "Yep, this is going to happen"? I would believe something like that. They got their facts, they got their evidence, and said, "We're all climatologists. We've all come to the same conclusion." Then, yeah, I think there's some decent credibility.
Well, that's what the IBCC is supposed to be, or IPCC, right? International Panel on Climate Change. I think that's the acronym stand. The IPCC is supposed to be, but they've been wrong every time. They keep coming up with conclusions like, so those are the records that are cited. Oh yeah, we're gonna see this and this, and then none of those predictions ever come true. No. And you're like, well, those are the people who say this is what's gonna happen and this is what we need to do to stop it, and their solution is always get rid of fossil fuels. But then their predictions, even as we increase our fossil fuel consumption or our fossil fuel or our CO2 emissions globally, even as we continue to do more than what their predictions were accounting for, their predictions, the outcomes, the catastrophic that...
Way off.
Yeah, they're way off. So it's like, you can come here with this panel of scientists and they can get... But you've lost all credibility at this point because you've cried wolf too many times. So even if you can kind of produce a definitive report that proves this, it's kind of like, at this point, you don't have the track record to, like, they might be accurate on the facts, but
I'm just saying, as far as presentation, why is everyone making a
big
a 16-year-old girl crying in front of the UN about climate change and how it's destroyed her future? That's just disgusting propaganda.
Yeah.
That's not even... That has nothing to do with science or anything. So
it's the appeal to emotion because it's an appeal to emotion because they do not have the facts on their side. They do not have the science. That's the other thing is, like, so all the names that I mentioned, there's Nobel laureates in there. There's people who have, like, been doing studying climate for decades and, like, that have these are people with really high credentials. And they're coming out and saying, yeah, this is not... There's nothing here. The Earth is getting warmer, but that's to be expected because we are leaving an ice age. And yes, it's going to be warmer on record than it ever has been before. But that's because we're leaving an ice age. That's like... you're starting on the assumption that the current temperature is the ideal temperature, which that's their problem right there. It's like, wait a minute. That's like... It's a bit preposterous. It's like, okay, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. So, let's see, something that's... Okay, so, if a car was going in reverse, and then it slowed down and stopped and started to accelerate, they'd look at the acceleration and be like, oh, if this car continues at this rate, it's going to drive over the entire United States and into the ocean. And you're like, what? No, it was going in reverse, and it was headed towards a cliff. I guess I should have. So it's going in reverse, headed towards a cliff, and you're like, and it stopped, and then it came to a stop. It came to a stop, and then it started going again, and now it's accelerating. And they're like, oh, dude, if it keeps at this rate, it's going to drive all the way to the other coast and off the edge. And I'm like, that doesn't... Like, they're looking at it in a very small time step where it stopped going the wrong direction. Like, this short little segment of, okay, it was headed towards a cliff, because if you look at the statistics on the little ice age and all that sort of thing, we were close to the line of CO2 in the atmosphere, where plant life is not sustainable on the Earth, and all life dies because there's no plant life is the source of all life on Earth. Yep. That's the foundation. Without plants, nothing else can survive. That the entire food chain disappears. We were within 100 parts per million. I think it was like down to 80 parts per million away from life extinction due to lack of CO2 in the atmosphere, and then that reversed, and now it's going the other way, and now we're starting to see increasing in temperatures, and it's like. They look at that as like, oh, right now, for some reason, this little small snippet of time that we have experienced is the ideal temperature. And like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why would this specific time frame at this specific temperature be the ideal temperature?
Yeah.
That's a false assumption that what we have now is the way things should be. That's like...
In the middle of winter, when it's like 10 degrees outside and I got to put on my big coat and 2 pairs of pants, I don't think that's an ideal temperature.
They seem to. Like, oh, the way things are right now, that's perfect. And how dare things change? It's a fundamentally incorrect view that the current temperature is the way the world should be. That's... Alright, I think... so... This is related because you just mentioned the 7-hour climate change debate, and one of the things that happened kind of repeatedly is they're talking about either taxing meat or talking about reducing agriculture or reducing meat consumption and all of that sort of thing. So there's Kamala Harris has talked about it, Warren has talked about it, and Yang talked about it, and
so we could fix climate change if we all went vegan.
Yeah. And so this, I don't even know the exact time this happened, but it was sometime last week. They had a big cookout where they were barbecuing, and they were,
really?
Yeah, and Harris and Warren were there, and I think Klobuchar was there too. It's like, why do you guys even hear yourselves?
We need to stop this.
I think it was in Iowa, like some big Iowa cookout where there was like 10,000 pounds of meat or something like that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Iowa steak fry. Oh, Booty Judge was there as well. Oh, this is ridiculous.
Is that where Biden was?
I think, yeah, Biden's there too. He's at the grill. He's manning the grill.
Yeah, that's where they were asking him about his son.
Yeah, okay, so that's where that footage is from. It's from that event. Yeah, a reporter asked him about his son. He's like, "You're asking the wrong questions. You need to ask Trump." And like, but Trump wasn't in charge. He wasn't making deals. Yeah, so Booker was, like, all of them were there, I think. Yeah. What?
They're a group. I think they're hoping that all of them together can get elected. Maybe we'll have 10 presidents at once.
Okay.
If they hang out enough. I don't know what's going on.
8,000 8-ounce strips of sirloin steak. So that is 4,000 pounds of steak alone at this at this event.
I mean, you're making me hungry.
Oh, dude. The like, again, calling this Clown World is an insult to Clown World. I don't.
Yeah, I think Clown World would, at least everything would be fun and everyone can have a laugh.
Yeah, because they would be in on the joke. These people don't realize.
Clown World.
Like, I don't think these people realize they're the clowns. Because, like, how do you have a 7-hour debate and you're talking about we should reduce our meat consumption, and then you go to an event like this where you're. Yeah, how do you the mental gymnastics? I don't understand. How do you? Yeah, all of them were there, and all of them at one time or another have said something about meat or possible law. I think doing something to curb meat consumption. Debate,
and probably also that second debate for the DNC. I used to think Yang he was an okay guy, so had the interest of the people, and then Gabbard. Those were the only two that made any kind of sense. I don't agree with everything, but
yeah.
After that, I think Gabbard's still up here. Yang just dropped off the map.
Yeah.
His whole "if we all went vegan, we could prevent climate change" statement, and his trying to sell his freedom
UBI.
Where he was, what did he say?
Yeah,
Text this and freedom dividend, and we'll give you an early taste of freedom dividend.
No, yeah, he's gonna give that to 10 families for
Is that not a gimmick?
Yeah.
I mean, that's super gimmicky. That's like a sales call.
Yep.
It's like a timeshare or something stupid. After that, I was like, nah, I don't even want to hear it.
Yeah, I understand that he's desperate for attention because he's not
going to
getting.
say, nope, I don't want the $1,000 a month. Nobody. And if you go ask people, hey, after giving $1,000 a month, how do you feel
But
about that? Who's bought my vote? Thumbs up. But
well,
you
that's
can't do
it.
that for the entire country.
No, and the other thing is, those people are not paying his VAT, like so the value added tax of 10%. That's how he's planning on paying for the UBI. He's giving 10 families $1,000 a month, and they don't owe anything back. It's not increasing their tax burden. It's not changing the tax structure. It's just an extra $1,000 a month to those 10 people.
Not increasing the cost of goods.
Yeah.
Due to value added tax.
Yeah, those people are just getting free money from Yang. If he implemented that across the entire country, it's not gonna. Comparing those two initiatives is not even close, because the entire country, in order to afford it, he's talking about a 10% sales tax on everything. Possibly not. What do we call it? Like basic groceries and like food staples. Possibly not like things like diapers. There's probably exceptions to the value added tax, but for everything else, like if you're just going and getting an ice cream, or you're just going to the store and getting a burger, 10% tax. So I was looking at it, I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me I'm gonna get an extra $1,000 a month, but everything's gonna be 10% more expensive? So you're really only giving me like $900 a month, because at least $100 of that is going to paying taxes. That's just how it works, right? So, like, everybody's going to be paying more in taxes, and that's just the VAT, the value-added tax. That's not. He hasn't talked anything about increasing the tax brackets or the overall tax burdens, but mathematically, that's going to happen. His value-added tax of 10% is not going to be enough to cover all of the UBI expenses. Because the other thing about that is, he's going to have to give that to people who are not on the grid right now. There are a lot of homeless people out there who are not tax members at all. They're going to get that $1,000 a month, so they're just like, oh, I got a social security number. I'm right now. You're ignoring my numbers. Okay, that's another $1,000 a month there to people who haven't been contributing for who knows how long, and they're not being accounted for in his numbers. So there's the homeless people. There's also, I don't understand how his UBI could avoid going to illegals, people who are here illegally. I don't know what the plan is to keep that from going to them. I'm not sure what kind of policy exceptions are, but there's a lot of, like, there's no way a 10% value added tax could cover all of this. It's just, that's going to have to come from other places, and that means increasing taxes. So the other thing is prices are going to go up because of this. It's the same things that would happen because of the minimum wage increases is going to happen because of the UBI increase. It'll all have this big domino effect, and at the end, everybody's going to be back to where they were. They're just making more, but the percentages are all the same.
Yeah, inflation will be higher.
It's again, going back to RPGs, it's just point inflation. Like, I'm doing 1,000,000 damage, but it takes 100 hits for me to kill this boss. Oh, I leveled up. I'm now doing 1,000 damage, and it still takes 100 hits to kill a boss. Yeah, it doesn't. I'm stronger because the numbers are bigger. Yeah.
Yep.
So, Yang. As soon as I read his actual proposal for the full UBI, because like when he first announced it, he didn't have a clear on how he wanted to implement it and how he's going to pay. But now that he's got something a little more definitive, it's like, oh, dude, that I don't know why you ever thought that this was even remotely possible.
Yep.
But yeah, so Tulsi Gabbard is actually going to make it to the fourth debate. She got enough votes in a poll, so she's going to make it to the fourth. So she's still kind of in it, but since she wasn't in the third round, she's kind of like limping still. Like she's sitting around the 1% to 2%. So right now it looks like Warren's going to take it. Like if I had to put money on it now, I'd put my money on Warren. I would prefer Gabbard to win, not because I think she's going to beat Trump, but I think she's actually going to make Trump a better candidate. I think she's the most qualified competitor that Democrats have to offer, and that's that iron sharpening iron. Trump, right now, if any of the other chumps get up there and they're like, Trump's just gonna, whatever. He's just gonna smack them around. They're not a challenge for him. I think Tulsi might be the only one who's gonna put any kind of, I guess I should claim, Harris might also present a challenge for him, but for all the wrong reasons. Like, I don't think anything. I think she's gonna be competitive, as in he might lose the election because of her, but I don't think there's anything he could do policy wise or promise wise. Like, he could do anything within the powers of a president to combat her. I think she would win on identity alone, not policy wise, not anything good she could do for the country. So, as far as a candidate, I don't think there's anything on Trump's platform that he could possibly do or improve to prevent Harris from winning. I don't think there's anything he could change. Tulsi, on the other hand, has some policies that are kind of like, oh, here's where you're weak. If you don't change this, she could take this from you. So that actually gives him somewhere to be like, okay, now I can focus on, okay, I was weak here. Okay, I need to strengthen up this position, become an overall stronger candidate. Now she's got no ammo against me. But what can you do against, I'm black and I'm a woman? It's like, what policy do I focus on? Where, right now, Tulsi's like, hey, your foreign policy right now,
Yeah,
that's where you could, your stances against,
Harris's numbers are dropping.
Yeah,
And
I don't think
her
she's,
Unitarian politics are playing out like everybody thought they would.
I don't think she's going to get the Democratic nomination. So
No, it looks like it'll probably be Warren, especially after this last stuff with Biden.
So it, like, just comparing all the different candidates versus Trump, I think only two would give him a run for his money, and that would be Tulsi and Harris for all the wrong reasons. But when it comes to which one is likely to get the nomination from the Democrats, I think Warren's the only one who's, like, it's gonna kind of be a coin flip between Warren and Biden, and I don't think Biden's gonna win. I think
that they're putting faith in him. He was kind of their go-to guy, and then the more he opens his mouth, the more that comes out. He is constantly shooting himself in the foot.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a coin toss, and Warren's going to call heads, and Biden's going to call the side. I want the edge of the coin. Okay. So I think that's how that would play out. I think the Democrats have lost faith in him because they're like, he's starting to say crazier and crazier things. So I think Warren is bumping ahead because of that, even though she's saying mildly crazy things. They're not that crazy for Democrats. Whereas Biden is talking about just outright. I don't know if he's following what's going on or like he's having too many senior moments. But okay,
I just like first.
So while we're talking about Biden,
I mean, that's how does that happen?
I had never heard this story before, but it's been going around. A lot of people are changing their screen names on Twitter to Corn Pop something or something Corn Pop. So I was like, what in the world is with this Corn Pop stuff? So I look into it. So he was a lifeguard at a pool and got into a fight with a gangster named Corn Pop, and then and then met him in the parking lot and talked it out, and the two became friends. That's the story. And he was like, so nobody there's no Corn Pop. There's nobody can find this guy. Like, people are asking, and they're like, yeah, we'll pay good money if you can find this Corn Pop. Like, nobody believes any shred of this story. Like, it like
especially because the gangster.
Yeah, gangster named Corn Pop. I know a lot of gangsters have stupid names, but
This is my boy Pretty Pebbles. Can you back me up? Hard
Dude.
pop. What?
yeah,
Yeah, that's hilarious. What?
I don't know, but he's been telling this story for a while. Yeah, but the whole story seems kind of made up. I mean, a lot of his stories sound kind of made up. And did we talk about this last week where he was talking about pinning a Medal of Honor on a veteran, and he got two different people, like, so he got two incidences mixed up. So there was an incident where somebody was pinning a Medal of Honor on somebody. The person pinning the Medal of Honor was not Biden. That was President Obama. So the other incident was him pinning I don't remember if it was a silver star or silver cross. I don't think silver stars actually. I think it's a silver cross. But it's a high. So the Medal of Honor is typically, unless extreme extenuating circumstances, is pinned on by the president. So the other incident was him where he did actually pin a medal on somebody, but it was like the Silver Cross. I don't know the exact. I don't remember the exact award, but you'd think he would because he was the one involved in the ceremony. Because if memory serves me correct, there's several different awards that are kind of like the highest you can get from a military member. And I know for the Air Force it's a Silver Cross. I'm not sure if that's universal across all four branches. It might be, but granted, I was like, not important unless you're studying to pass your exams. Because after that, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to earn that award, so... Sorry, anyway, I'm digressing from the story. So he mixed those two incidents up. So he claimed to have pinned a Medal of Honor on somebody, but that's something usually reserved for the president. And there's an incident where he was there, and Obama pinned an award on somebody. The other incident was a Silver Cross, which Biden did pin, and the guy was claiming, oh no, don't pin that on me, I don't deserve it, because he had attempted to save somebody, but the guy died anyway. So he felt that he didn't deserve the award because he didn't actually save anybody, he just made the attempt. And the way Biden described it was that he pinned a Medal of Honor on somebody. The incident where the guy was saying, no, that, I don't deserve it, was after Biden was out, or this was after Obama was president, if the time frame, if I remembering the time frame correctly. So he's mixing, like, now I sound like a rambling fool, because I'm like, oh, what was the go? I don't remember the story, I wasn't in either, I'm going off of secondhand reports on all of this, but Biden was actually there, and he's confusing all this stuff as well, so I'm like, man, I'm going through my head of like, which was... Sorry, it's confusing for me. I guess I should have had this stuff pulled up so that way I can actually go off of the story itself rather than from memory. But he's been telling that story, and he's mixing up events and all that sort of... It's like...
Yeah, there's a thing on the Washington Post about that. He mixed up 3 different events.
Yeah, 3 different events.
I was wrong about all the details or what he was even doing there.
Yeah. So that's what this corn pop incident was, probably just a mix of a bunch of things, and it's like, now you get the story at the end, and I guess the story sounds good to the reporters, because everybody else just looks at it and like, what? Like, that's not a... Like, are you serious? This is a thing? So he believes the story is accurate and true, but everybody else is just laughing at him. Yeah. So sorry, my memory of the correction of the story is inadequate. But Biden's memory of the incident is even more inadequate. So, boom. I'm just going off of what I read over the course of a 5-minute little research into that, and that wasn't even something I had planned to talk about today. But anyway.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Corn.
It's so absurd.
Well, so he calls him a gangster, and so there's a lot of gangster types that have silly names, which is what I was talking about earlier, like Eminem. But those guys aren't so much gangsters as they are rappers pretending to be gangsters. Because like one, Puff Daddy, right?
Yeah, but this was in the 60s.
Puff Daddy and Snoop Dogg and Eminem, yeah. Like Ice-T and Ice Cube, okay, I can understand. Those seem more like gangster names. Snoop Dogg was called Snoop Dogg because people were saying that he reminded them of Snoopy. Sean Puffy Combs, or Puff Daddy, got his nickname because he would puff out his chest in fights at school. Eminem...
It's just because his name's Marshall Mathers. It's 2 M's.
Yeah, it's 2 M's, and it's the name of a candy. That's, But all three of those guys are rappers with no real history being gangsters. At least not to my... Like, the closest one is kind of Puff Daddy, and I'm like, yeah, but not so much. He had friends that were involved, like Biggie, that were involved in crime that ended up dying over it, but Puff Daddy, not so much. Snoop Dogg, as far as I know, was never actually a gangster. Let's see. 50 Cent, he was an actual gangster. But, I mean, I don't know if 50 Cent sounds similar to Corn Pop, or Eminem, or Puffy, or Snoop Dogg.
He was the leader of a local gang called the Romans.
Okay, so yeah. So I'm thinking gangster as in what we modern know it. So he's talking about gangster as in the Sharks versus this. What was the West Side Story, right? Sharks versus
I was
Cobras.
thinking more of like Arrested Development. The guys hired all those stage dancers,
Yeah.
act like a gang. And they came out with the boombox. Can't we all just get along? Corn Pop.
Yeah. So his version of gangster, I'm guessing, is kind of like John Travolta from Grease.
Yeah, hair slick back. A lot of hair product.
Yeah.
Everyone walking, snapping. What do we have to do with Corn Pop?
That guy's dangerous. You don't want to mess with him. He'll challenge you to a drag race. Alright. Okay, I got 2 more stories to talk about. Man, it's already 9 o'clock. So this one's a shorter story, so I don't have much on this other than that Jordan Peterson has been out of the news pretty recently, and we finally got the story on what's going on. He has checked himself into rehab, and when I first heard this, I was like, what's going on? It sounded a lot more serious than I think it actually is. So, his wife was diagnosed with cancer a couple of months back, and he has been taking antidepressants. And he has become addicted to those antidepressants. And rather than go through, so now his wife has recovered, and he's trying to wean himself off of those antidepressants, but these are apparently kind of hardcore narcotics, and quitting on your own is something that's not like it's going to be a long drawn out process or something along those lines, or it can have detrimental health effects. And rather than go through all of that, he's decided he's just going to check himself into a rehab center, get himself off of the substance, and then never has to worry about it again, sort of thing. So when I first heard this, so this was his daughter talked about this and confirmed that this is exactly what's going on. Other people talking about this kind of seemed like, ooh, this is, like, when it was first reported, I was like, that sounds serious, but looking into it's kind of like, okay, It's not like he's got a drinking problem or he's started taking hardcore narcotics. These are prescription medications that can become addictive, and he wasn't getting them illegally. He was getting them prescribed by, professionals and things like that. This is just a situation that he found himself in. It's not a... It's a bad situation, and it's unfortunate that he thought, or that he concluded such substance was necessary to help him deal with his wife's cancer treatment. But overall, this is not like a Robert Downey Jr. where his life is being destroyed by them sort of thing. Which, because when I first heard this, I was like, that's what people were reporting on it and made it sound like his life is, he's on these drugs, he's addicted because of some other kind of... No, it's just a bad string of events in his life, and this was what he thought. I'm guessing he thought this was a what's the word there? Methodological? No. I could understand why he saw this as a reasonable way of dealing with the situation, and it got out of hand, as narcotics often do. To me, it seems like almost a non-story, but I just figured I'd have to put it out there. Yeah.
Something like that is going to stick with him for a while.
Yeah. I'm hoping that this doesn't damage his credibility too much, because to me this doesn't seem like it seems like the kind of thing that could happen to anybody, and I think he's taking the appropriate step. Because it doesn't seem like this addiction has gotten to the point where it's interrupting things, it's interrupting his mental ability or his speeches, or it's just something that he is taking and he wishes no longer to take it, but because of the extreme habit-forming nature of this particular substance, it's better to have a professional rehabilitation rather than try to halfway do it and maybe end up being addicted to the substance way longer than he should.
Yep, makes sense.
So it's unfortunate. I wish him a speedy recovery, and I hope everything goes well, and I hope the cancer treatment for his wife continues to go well, because cancer's I can understand why it would put anybody's mental health in a bad situation, but me personally, I would never take any substance to try to deal with that, but yeah.
Bad situation. I think watching your loved ones die of cancer is almost worse than if it was like an immediate accident, car accident, or falling off of something, and because that you're just watching them slowly wither away. It's a horrible.
Yeah, I'm about to say something, but I probably shouldn't get into family life. But never mind. Yeah. We've dealt with cancer in the family, but not gonna say more than that. All right, last story. I think I covered everything else. Right. So talk about Ed Buck. I talked about the blackface. Yeah, the Big Lewandowski is the last thing. Okay. So, see, I had more on this. I was expecting this to be more of a story this week, but it kind of got overshadowed by the climate nonsense over the weekend. So Corey Lewandowski, he was Trump's campaign manager when Trump originally announced. He was actually one of the first people Trump contacted with starting his assessment on whether he should run it at all. So he was part of that team that put together, hey, we think you actually have a shot at winning this, and actually started the campaign. But Corey Lewandowski was kicked off the campaign after the Michelle Fields incident, which that's the incident where it caused me to question Ben Shapiro's judgment, because seems pretty obvious from all the footage and the angles, and she's just making crap up. I've seen soccer players who have a better a more legitimate claim of injury than the Michelle Fields thing. Ugh. Yeah. Dude, like, yeah, you've seen the soccer games, right? Where the guy, like, will brush by him.
Oh, yeah.
And
Taking a dive,
yeah.
acts like he got kicked or hit in the eye or something, and nothing ever touched him. He
Yeah.
goes around screaming around.
That's what the Michelle Fields incident was kind of like. It was like that only in politics, because she was going up and asking Trump a question. Lewandowski kind of brushes the mic out of the way and kind of pushes her to the side or whatever, and then she falls down and is like, I'm injured. I probably bruised the rib. I was assaulted by him. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So that was part of the reason Shapiro left Breitbart and started his own thing, which ultimately it worked out for him. And maybe he was probably looking for any excuse whatsoever at the time, but Shapiro left over that. But that also kicked Corey Lewandowski off of Trump's campaign, and he was replaced by Kellyanne Conway. So, I mean, overall it worked out pretty well for everybody, but he's back in the news again because of the Mueller investigation. And so now the Democrats have started an impeachment investigation led by Nadler. And the first person they had up to the stand was Corey Lewandowski. And as it was brought up multiple times, is he's already been interviewed. He's already been questioned. Everything he has to say on the matter has pretty much always already been said. And that was in the Mueller report. There was, I think this is his. They talked about the exact numbers. I know he's been at least 4 times before various committees and hearings, and it's always been forthcoming. But for some reason, during this particular incident, the Nadler decided to subpoena him to come before Congress and testify. So I'm gonna keep going unless do you have something to chime in here?
I was gonna say that was a very disgusting display by Nadler.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was one point where he had the report in front of him.
Yeah.
He was trying to read whether a statement or date was true, and you could see Lewandowski is like, "I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. I don't know. Can you read that back to me?" And he's like, "It's on this page, but you're on record as stating it." He's like, I don't have the report, so without knowing exactly what you're referring to, can you just read that back?" And Nadler's like, "Nope, I'm not reading it back. You're just going to answer the question."
Yeah. So
the whole thing is a farce.
Yeah. So I there are 2 ways of viewing it, and I can understand why some of the Democrats are playing it off like, oh, he's just stalling, he's stonewalling, he's not answering these questions directly. That's because they're still under the impression that something nefarious occurred. And had something nefarious occurred, I could see their perspective. But even based on the own report itself, nothing nefarious occurred. So their whole perspective is based on a flawed premise. And so they're saying they're acting as if he's a hostile witness, but that's because they're acting as if he's hiding or covering up something, or he's trying to manipulate the situation to make it look less conniving or whatever, because they've got it in their minds that something malicious was going on. But if you look at previous people who have been accused of wrongdoing or have been tried for perjury, like what's his name, Roger Stone. If you look at the charges against him and against General Flynn, they are over small misunderstandings or misstatements that have been concluded were obvious lies to cover up the truth. So in Stone's case, he's testified before Congress that he did not receive any communication from Assange regarding the WikiLeaks. Meanwhile, there is communication as far as emails from WikiLeaks to Stone saying that there is going to be a release in the future. It doesn't state anything about the content in the release, what's involved. He didn't have any prior knowledge other than, oh, something's coming soon. He took that and then reported that to either the president directly or somebody. It's like, hey, yeah, there's more stuff coming out from WikiLeaks. That's what the Mueller report investigation was. But when he was testifying before Congress, he's like, yeah, Assange didn't tell me anything. And they're like, oh, but you got this email. Here you are reporting on that email where you're saying something's coming down. That's communication with Assange. That's collusion. I'm like, dude, what kind of nonsense is that? That's the type of stuff that they are willing to raid Roger Stone's house in the middle of the night with full SWAT gear. They didn't request that he come in, or they instead go to his house and have a CNN reporter on the scene while they raid his house. Like, they basically treat him like an armed criminal, storm the door to hand him the subpoena or the arrest record. I don't remember what exactly. I don't think he actually went to jail that day. From what I understand is he later on went to the court case, and he was still out of jail and was taking interviews. So it's like, that wasn't the official arrest on him, but they did raid his house with SWAT team members. Meanwhile, General Flynn is something similar instance where he said there was no communication with individuals from Russia prior to the nomination, and there's something with General Flynn along the lines of an arrangement for a meeting once the nomination is confirmed, or once Trump got inaugurated. It's like arranging for a meeting. Nothing discussed as far as what's going to be talked about in that meeting. Nothing official from the campaign. No information. It's just like, hey, we're scheduling a meeting. They took Flynn. They were raking him across the coals for that, because like, this was 2 days before the inauguration, or 2 days. I can't remember if it was 2 days before the actual election or if it was 2 days before the inauguration. But it's something along those lines. And he said there was no communication with them prior to that. And it's like, it's arranging a meeting. How is that like some grounds for collusion or conspiracy? It's like, yeah, this is stuff that you would expect a nominated official, or because again, the time frame I don't remember specifically, because it was either when he was going to be elected or it was after he'd already been elected. So that I'm not sure. I think it was after he had already gotten the nomination, but before he had been actually inaugurated to be the president. I'm like 80% certain that was the case, or it might have been when he was like, yeah, he's going to be president, and after he's president, we need to start, or after he's nominated, we need to start setting up these meetings, sort of thing. So anyway, the FBI threw the book at him over this because he testified before them saying that he didn't have communications with some foreign national, and he was like, oh, yeah, whatever, is setting up a meeting. It's not like when you talk about communication with somebody like Stone with Assange or with Flynn with a foreign national, it's under the impression that you're talking about some specific topic and that you're exchanging information. Oh, hey, what do you know about Hillary? What kind of dirt do you have on Hillary? What kind of, hey, once he becomes president, then we're going to give you this kind of deal. We're going to pass this law that gives you, start investing here. Like, that's the sort of thing that you expect the FBI to be interested in. It's not the, I called to say that we're going to talk about this next week. Like, that's the sort of stuff that they're throwing the book at these people for. So, in Corey Lewandowski's case, it's like, yeah, I'm going to make sure that if I've said something that is official and is on record, that I don't contradict myself in front of Congress now. Because if I say something that's like, well, to the best of my knowledge, that's true, and they're like, oh no, to the best of look at this report, it says here right there, that was 2 days before, oh, boom, busted, man. That's the stuff these Democrats would pull. That's...
that's what they're going after. I don't see why Nadler would refuse his request when he says, I don't have the report and you do. Can you just read me back what you're asking for?
Yeah.
Nadler wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
What they're trying to get him on is to make him look like he's perjuring himself, like he's been lying.
Yeah. So, and I want to so the main thing I want to talk about in regards to this is the White House sent a letter to Mr. Lewandowski and to Nadler and the members of that committee. And it was informing Lewandowski that he should not testify to anything outside of what was in the Mueller report. And that was the White House lawyers talking about that, and it's precisely because they knew the Democrats were looking for any little mistake or him to testify on anything that is kind of close, but oh, hey, here's a discrepancy in your story sort of thing. They're looking to nitpick on details rather than substance. And so they were like, yeah, just don't say anything if it's not in the report. So every time they asked him about something that was in the report, he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna stick to what's in the report. One of the things that was very, very frustrating for me about that is Nadler opens his discussion talking about, well, did you tell the White House? Did you confirm with the White House? And he's like, I haven't talked with the White House at all concerning any of this. And he kept asking him, he's like, oh yeah, so was this your decision? And he's like, I didn't talk with the White House about this. Like, the insistence from Nadler seemed to be that Lewandowski had secretly met with the White House in order to get them, like, yeah, I need some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. Can you draft up a document that says I don't have to testify to anything that's not in the document here, or that's not in the Mueller report? But that doesn't seem to be the case, and according to the testimony, the White House gave him that as the, yeah, you know what these guys are up to. Just don't play into their game and their trick. And the other guys are the member, like Jim Jordan, I believe, is the Republican congressman who was on the other side. Yeah, really good guy. Like from what I've seen, I don't know much about his policies or what he's voted on, but from what I've seen in similar incidents, like he was also a pretty big champion for Candace Owens when she was. Oh, that also happened this week. Man, I didn't touch on that at all. Candace Owens went back before Congress, and so yeah. So Jim Jordan seems like an all-around decent guy, at least when it comes to these hearings. Yeah, he was right there with Lewandowski and was talking about everything that this current impeachment investigation is regarding to. It's already there in the report. So they didn't learn anything new, which, why would you expect them to learn anything new? Because everything's in the report itself. There's nothing everything that's in the report covers all the bases. It already lays out the entire storyline, the events, and the order in which they happened. What more, like the whole bringing Lewandowski before them in the first place seems kind of, just completely unnecessary. They already have all the information they could need. This is all the circus.
Well, he made a comment that basically called them out and said, you guys are just going to keep pushing on this until you finally get the answer you want, even if it's not there.
Yeah.
He called him out on that, and then there was another congressman that basically said, yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Okay. So there was one other thing that was, and you could see the Republicans are the minority in the House, and so they were overruled numerous times on different votes, but at the end of all of this, the Democrats got 30 minutes for a member of staff to question Lewandowski. And the week before, they had changed the rules so that contractors were considered staff. And so they hired somebody to question Lewandowski for the sole purpose of this hearing. So each of the members of Congress got to ask him questions for 5 minutes. A single lawyer who was hired for the sole purpose of this hearing got to ask him questions for 30 minutes nonstop. No breaks, nothing. 30 full minutes. And the Republican guy were pointing out, it's like, so wait a minute. You're telling me the rules of this chamber are that as an elected member, I'm limited to 5 minutes to ask Mr. Lewandowski questions. And a contractor gets to ask him 30 minutes of questions. So the contractor is of a higher privilege than a member of the House? Dude, the 30 minutes of staff questioning is for members of the House staff to ask questions, and usually it's spread out over multiple members. It's not one specific person asking nonstop questions. But the way that these rules are being interpreted by Nadler, so the Republicans were not expecting any of this, and at the end, they opted to lose 30 minutes of questioning time because they didn't have a member of staff, and they said this is a complete violation of not the committee's rules, but House rules in general. What you just did here, Nadler. This is a violation of the House rules. You can't create a rule within this one committee that overrules what is a House rule, because you've just made a hired contractor higher in authority than all of the members of this, all the congressional members in this committee. And he's exactly right. I was like, that's ridiculous.
No, that Nadler dude, he is sneaky and deceptive and a disgusting person. He is not trying to find truth.
So
he is trying to keep pushing until somebody makes a oopsie with their verbiage.
Yeah.
Jump on it because just anti-Trump.
But this is another one of, if this rule is not contested, it should be contested and it should be overruled. But considering the Democrats have the majority, they're likely to, pull some kind of violation of the rules and get and keep this as the standard, and this is going to bite them in the butt.
It happens every time they make those special exception rules. They put something in place for them for then and now, and then when things flip by the next term, then they complain about the rule and how it's not justice and it's not fair and what. You guys did it.
Yeah. Because if you go back to the scenario, like something like this was done, like the only other kind of example was the Kavanaugh hearing, where all of the Republican questions were filtered through a representative. But that's because if you get your 5 minutes as a member of Congress, you can say, I'm going to give someone else my 5 minutes. That's within the rules. And the other thing is, she was an employee. She was an employee prior to the Ford accusation. She's already been to multiples of these. It's not like she's on retainer or she's a contractor. She works for the courts. The woman who was interviewing Blasey Ford. So having her there doing that's not a violation of the rules, and that's something that is allowable. And it seems, and so what Democrats have taken that and like, oh, hey, let's just do the same sort of thing as a complete violation. So the 30 minutes at the end of these hearings are for staff only. It's not staff. So those staff could also ask questions during, like, Nadler's time. Nadler could give up his 5 minutes and say, hey, I'm going to have a member of my staff ask you questions. That's within the rules. Having somebody who's hired only to ask questions of a specific person, not for any other type of scenario, not for any other type of hearing, but for one specific, that's a violation. It's like, that's completely ignoring the purpose of the rules of the committee to begin with.
Yeah.
It's completely circumventing the procedure that is there to help, I guess. I'm not sure what the.
They're bending the rules to benefit themselves for now.
Yeah, which
but
the other thing is.
Comes back later where they whine and complain about it if someone else tries to use the rules they have established.
Yeah.
And why would they complain about it now that it doesn't benefit them? Wouldn't that mean it was incorrect in the first place?
Yeah. So more than likely this is going to come back to bite them in a butt, because from what I've seen, the Republicans are much smarter than the Democrats. I mean, granted, it's for the most part it's not by much, but there are standouts like Gowdy and Jim Jordan's and a couple of others that are escaping me at the moment. But meanwhile, the Democrats have Rono and Jackson. Dude, like the line of questioning from those people, I'm like, oh, you hurt my brain every time they get up there and question anything.
Anytime that Macy Rono gives a statement, she just sounds like an imbecile.
Yeah.
I don't know how she got elected. Who would vote for someone that incompetent?
Okay, so like I'm gonna make sure that I'm pretty sure the guy's name was Jackson. I might be confusing the last names of two different people here, but so the other guy's the guy who was talking about like squirming like a gutted fish or something like a descaled fish or something like that. That's the same guy who in a different committee was talking about putting too many people on Guam could cause it to tip over.
What?
Yeah. He was worried that having too many people on an island would cause it to flip over.
Do you think it's like a little plastic buoy just floating out there in the middle of the ocean?
I don't know, but that's what he's famous for. And then and his questioning of Lewandowski, yeah, it's on the same level of why is this guy here? Like the whole line of questioning, it made no sense. I'm not sure what point he was driving at. It was just to criticize Lewandowski's character, and he called him out on it. He's like, yeah, you're just making baseless accusations against me. So Lewandowski did have some like gangster moments, because one of the other ladies, was her name also Jackson? Okay, so because I'm pretty sure his name was Jackson. Yeah, I probably should have done a little more on this prior to the stream, but yeah, because there was yeah, Sheila Jackson Lee. Oh, so her so the last name is Lee, but yeah, Jackson. So she goes on like a minute-long tirade against him, accusing him of being dishonest and of So the main thing that they were driving home is Lewandowski was given a message to deliver to then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and the message was supposed to be it was something from Trump where he was trying to get Jeff Sessions to say that the entire investigation shouldn't be happening. Lewandowski never delivered that message, and they're questioning him, saying, "Oh, you knew it was illegal, you knew it was wrong." Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know, but based on the entire question, I was like, even if he had delivered that message, nothing about that would be illegal, from what I can tell, because the president could fire Sessions because he was appointed Sessions. It's his authority. And Sessions at the time had recused himself for no obvious reason. It's kind of bizarre that he would recuse himself from the entire investigation to begin with. So I'm not sure why. And so at the time, the White House counsel had advised Trump not to contact Sessions directly because they didn't want the appearance of interfering with the investigation, which is why Trump went to Lewandowski, who was not a member of the White House staff, who's not paid, he was just as a kind of a personal errand from a friend, or hey, a personal favor from a friend. Hey, can you just get a message to Sessions that hopefully can avoid the appearance of of interference with the investigation. I just want Sessions to say something, along this lines, because it's his. And Trump had made this statement. It's like, yeah, if I'd known Sessions was going to recuse himself from this, I would have never appointed him in the first place. So, but the Democrats are taking all of this, just like, in the completely. Again, I could understand them having this perspective. Were there something nefarious going on? Was something found that they were trying to cover up? I could see them being like, oh, here's them trying to cover it up. Here's Trump pulling shenanigans to try to impede the investigation. But from everything that we've seen, since there was no proof of collusion with the Russians, since there was no what's the other the legal term? Not collusion. Conspiracy. There was no conspiracy between the Trump administration and Russia. So all of this just looks like Trump's just trying to get this headache over with. Because he knows that this is hurting him. It's hurting him getting things passed and done. Because public opinion is against him, because so many people are convinced that he's some secret spy. And he's like, yeah, all of this needs to stop. And he's trying to end it in any way possible. He's trying his hardest to make sure he's not doing anything that is illegal itself. And the very fact that Trump wants this investigation to stop because it's hurting his ability to run his administration, they're looking at that as evidence of him doing something wrong. So that's the entire reason they're questioning Lewandowski. And she goes off on this big long rant about Lewandowski, saying the reason he was doing things, implying motivation, questioning his character, and saying that he had lied before Congress on all this, and that he was lying right now. And at the end, they say, well, Mr. Lewandowski, answer the question. He's like, I don't believe there was a question. And she's like, yes, there was a question. I'll repeat the question. And then she goes through her notes, and it's like, yeah, there was just a rant. There was no question there. You were just ranting at him and making accusations with no evidence. So, yeah. So there was a lot of that. The other guy also, and I think he was also, his name is Jackson, right? But yeah, his was similar. He was just making a bunch of accusations, going off on a rant, and there was no question. What was that guy's name? Maybe it's not Jackson. Who's the guy who was talking about being a fish? Yeah, but there's a lot of silly nonsense going on in the whole trial itself. But Lewandowski is running for Congress. I think he's running. He's trying to get into the Senate, not the House of Representatives. So it looked like this was kind of his. So they mentioned this like in the Democrats, and I'm actually in agreement with them that he was only doing this because it's it puts his name in the spotlight, gives him kind of a. It's gonna boost because they talked about his books. It's going to boost either his sales or his notoriety with the books, and this is just going to look good for him on the campaign trail. And I kind of like, yeah, this was a more than publicity stunt on his end, but the entire procedure to begin with was a mockery. So here's the other. So the other major thing about this is it's not. They're treating it as if it's in regards to impeachment, because they made several allusions to previous investigations into the impeachment of Nixon in the Watergate scandal, and they cited that as a source, as like, yeah, you must testify on this because during the impeachment of Nixon, whoever was on the stand at the time had to investigate because there was a crime involved. And if there's a crime involved, then this would be, saying that the letter from the White House tells you not to discuss anything that's not in the report. Well, you're violating this right now because we're looking into impeachment. And then
but that was known crime. They were just trying to find details. There is no known crime.
Yeah. So that's what the Republicans talked about. It's like, wait a minute. So are you saying that this is an official impeachment hearing because this was not? You didn't go through the proper procedure to start that. You're again violating rules. If this is an actual impeachment investigation, then we need to dismiss this right now because we're violating House rules, and you need to start this. This needs to be that you need a vote on the House floor to begin impeachment processing, or and begin the impeachment procedure and actual impeachment hearings. If you're using this this committee for those purposes, you're abusing this committee. So they brought that up, and then he was like, oh no, this is not. This is not a violation. This is not what we're using this for. We're just trying to get information on whether we should impeach or not. And they point like, yeah, the only reason you're doing that is because you know you don't have enough votes on the floor to go through with an impeachment hearing. You don't have the votes to support you. There's not any evidence. You're fishing for evidence, which you just admitted to, and you're hoping that if you find something, that it'll sway more votes in your favor, and that you could possibly get an actual impeachment vote to pass. There's nothing here, though, and what you're trying to do to get the information, you would only have grounds to do if the vote had passed the floor. Yeah, again, trying to circumvent House rules to do something, to get something, it's a bizarre situation where they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're trying to treat this as if it was the same had a House vote already taken place. They're trying to treat this the committee with the same rules after an impeachment has been started without having that actual impeachment be started. So, yeah. Circus show, no new information. Lewandowski was... there was a little bit of him playing dumb. There was a little bit of him stalling for time. But the whole thing was a joke to begin with. So the funny thing is, Mueller did similar tactics when he was in front of the House to answer questions. But the thing is, the Democrats asked him to come. So the Republicans treated it like a joke and like it was all for show and like they weren't actually getting any information. But the Democrats were the ones who wanted it. And he was he was pulling a routine and doing a little bit of acting and stalling for time. And it's like, well, the Republicans kind of expected that, but the entire procedure was the Democrats were supposed to be able to use that, and they got nothing out of it either. So it's kind of like, well,
giant waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, it was, giant waste of everybody's time, so that was something the Democrats wanted, though. That's the thing that's bizarre about it. Like, Mueller was supposed to be on the Democrat side, and yet they got nothing new. So it was kind of like, well, at least Lewandowski is kind of on the opposite end, so you could understand him kind of being a hostile witness, or, being like, I'm not going to cooperate fully with your side because I know you're trying to catch me on something. I understand completely why he would behave that way, but Mueller was kind of behaving that way as well, and he was supposed to be on the Democrat side on all of this, and yet he was pulling some of that when Democrats were questioning him. I was just kind of like, I don't know that. I'm not sure what's going on here.
It's very easy to see this is kind of like the Salem witch hunt.
Yeah.
They are out to get their objective, whether wrong or right or proven or not. To them, they know this is the truth. They just have to dig a little deeper. Mm-hmm. And so anybody involved with it is going to get that impression and say, I need to be very careful with what I say and be on guard with anything that comes out of my mouth, because they'll start crying witch, and even if it's unfounded.
Yep.
So it's a bit messed up to see the House.
I ended up talking about this for an hour. My bad. Because it's already almost 10 o'clock. I was hoping to wrap this up around 9:15, and it's been way too long. Alright, my bad. Spent too much time on the Lewandowski thing, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Was there anything else you wanted to little touch on? Little smaller stories?
Yeah, I think that's all the stuff that I've been kind of keeping up with for the last week, so nothing else for now.
Just trying to think if I had anything prepped for the end, something like a little feel-good thing, or I got nothing. I was trying.
Just bring up the clip for that protester sprinkling confetti.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah. So I got nothing to end on here, but yeah, yeah, at least there was nothing like no huge tragedy or anything like that. So it was a lot of just silly nonsense and radicals being radicals, but that's what it's become par for the course. And
Yep.
it seems like everybody who's a Democrat and everybody who's a leftist is just absurdly laughable. It's bizarre that they can be wrong about so many things and think that they are still right. That's just trying to think. There was something I had, but I can't remember what it was. It probably should have been that Area 51 report of the kid running Naruto style behind him. That's what I should have ended on. Oh well. Next stream will not be next Tuesday, so it will be on the 30th, and we will be talking about the Communist Manifesto. So, and starting on the 30th going forward, we're expecting to do these streams on Mondays. So I will have to come up with a new way to end the streams, and also something with Mondays, right? Does anybody say it looks like somebody's got the case of the Mondays?
Just rocket space.
Nah. Nah. Yeah, so there's got to be something with Mondays. I'll come up with something. Monday Night Raw. Don't like it. Case the Mondays. Everybody hates Mondays. Yeah, I'll come up with something for next week. But thanks for anybody who joined with me and stuck this out to the end. I know I ramble a lot. Sorry about that. But I think that was everything I wanted to cover. Oh, wow. Okay. I thought it was... So what I'm seeing right here is it's only been about 2 hours and 40 minutes, so not... I guess I started late. Started way late, yeah. Okay. And thanks for anybody who joined me, and I will see you on Monday.